Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Today is Tuesday, November 13th, and welcome to Foxborough's Board of Selectmen meeting. I'll go over the agenda briefly. Starting at 7 o'clock, we have citizens' input. At 7:05, we'll give a chairman's update. At 7:10, we have a scheduled public hearing on the tax classification hearing. At 7:40, we have a brief discussion about the National Grid situation. At 7:55, we have a request for the town user fee waiver for the 2012 Maya Football Super Bowl held at Gillette Stadium. At 8:15, we have we're going to go over the special town meeting warrant review. And at 9:15, we're going to enter into executive session for the purpose of negotiations with non-union personnel. And then we have 7 or 8 action items and a couple other things that jumped off quickly at the last minute as well. So, Mark, you want to lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You want to do that first?
Sure.
Okay. We'll have citizens' input in a second, but before we get there, there was one item that kind of slipped by the selectmen last week. Typically, when there's an Eagle Scout, which is a very big deal, gets their Eagle Scout recognition, the Board of Selectmen either go to the ceremony or participate. And for some, I'm not sure, either invitations didn't get around, but I think Lorraine went. So we do have a certificate that Lorraine would want to present.
Tim, would you like to come up? So I had the pleasure of attending the Eagle Scout ceremony for Tim Smith. He did a fantastic project working with Mike Johns. And I'm just going to read the official citation to you because it describes the project. This is an official citation from the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen, on the occasion of this Eagle Court of Honor, commends Timothy Smith, Troop 32, Boy Scouts of America, in achieving the highest rank of Eagle Scout. Recognition is given to Timothy Smith, whose Eagle Scout project was to ensure that the burial sites of all veterans at the Rock Hill Cemetery in Foxborough had been maintained to reflect the respect due those who have served their country. We would like to express our sincere appreciation for the hours of time you have spent organizing this endeavor, along with the assistance of Foxborough's Veterans Agent Michael Johns and other volunteers. By making sure that all flags and service medallions were placed at each grave site and that information for each serviceman buried in the Rock Hill Cemetery has been updated and recorded, you have honored the memory of all those who have served. We wish you much success in your future and congratulate you on your achievement to the rank of Eagle Scout. This citation is given under the seal of the town of Foxborough on this 11th day of November, 2012.
Nice job, Tim. Congratulations. Oh, you were this big.
I know.
Okay, we'll move into, thanks, Lorraine. Move into citizens' input. Is anyone from the audience that would like to speak on any topic? Seeing none. I have a couple, some of these are announcements and updates. It seems like we've been meeting every week, and I think we have been meeting every week. But there's been a lot that's been going on in Foxborough. Just a quick note on Veterans Day. I want to give a special thank you to the Veterans Department and the Veterans Committee, the veterans and families that came on Saturday, the volunteers and the scouts, all led by Jack Arthurlet for their hard work for a very special Veterans Day. It was a powerful tribute, and finishing it off with refreshments from the Doolittle home was very appreciated. So if you were able to get out there, it was a couple hours, well worth it. Thank you for inviting the Board of Selectmen. We enjoyed it. Another quick Veterans Day outreach. Robert Kraft, the Kraft Group and the Massachusetts Rolling Thunder, who marked the first time in history of a professional sports team that left a seat permanently unoccupied in recognition of the many soldiers who are prisoners of war missing in action. So there's a black seat above the stadium's south end zone that will remain permanently empty and marked by a plaque recognizing the sacrifices of the POW MIA. It was very well done and very meaningful, and I thank you for this unprecedented step that happened in Foxborough. Quick note about the elections. Often when things go well, you don't hear anything. When things go bad, we hear a lot of stuff. We didn't hear anything over the elections, but I wanted to say thank you to the town hall staff, and especially Bob Cutler, who spent an extraordinary amount of time. I think he showed up before 5 in the morning and was there till well after midnight. And we had a lot of people that came, and it went very smoothly. So again, when you don't hear things, it's not because things aren't happening, but it was very well done. Hurricane Irene, just a quick thanks to Sandy. Oh, I keep saying Irene. Sandy. Still have Irene stuck in my head from last year. For the town people, the volunteers, the police, the fire, the veterans services, there's too many to name, but there's a lot that happened over the last year from Irene. And again, it was kind of quiet. We were less involved because I think the people that grouped up from last year did an outstanding job. So even though we were, people will probably remember the fact, when they lost electricity and when they got it back. It was a minor inconvenience to some of the other places south of here, New Jersey, New York. But again, thank you. And I think it was a good year to kind of put into practice some of the stuff that we learned from last year. So it is getting better. And on that note, Linda, do you want to mention something about what you're working on?
Sure. Saturday on the Common, it's Operation Sandy from Mass. We'll be up there from 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock. Truck is going to leave at 1:30, head down to stop in New York and then Toms River, New Jersey. We're asking people to come up and just bring what you have up to the Common. If you can't, just call Chris. There's flyers that went home with the school. And we just, once we realize that we're safe here and our friends down to the south of us still need us, so people have been asking, what can I do except, $10 donation to the Red Cross. So Chris kind of put this together and asked me to help out, and hopefully we'll have all sorts of things all over the Common to go into a 26-foot truck.
Great. That's
going down, and then if there's still more that won't fit into that truck, we'll probably do another run next weekend. So.
Okay. And from what I saw in the Foxborough Cable Access, it's not a situation where you just clean out your closet and give your old clothes, because I think they've got plenty of that.
If you are going to bring warm coats and things like that, if you can just mark them in the bag somehow that it's a woman's size medium, or if it's a child's, 6X or something, just so that, once we're dividing them up, because there are certain families that are looking for certain things. So once we get down there, it'll be easier for those folks that receive our stuff. So
perfect.
Any help, and if you want to volunteer to help sort some of the things out, we'll be up there needing that too. So
9 to 1 on Saturday.
9 to 1, yep.
Perfect. Thanks.
Excuse me, you're not accepting checks or cash? It's
Yes.
gift certificates?
Yeah, we have gift certificates. There's specific stores, because not all the stores are up and ready down there, and some of them we don't have down there, but there's a whole list. If you go on to Operation Sandy from Mass, the Facebook page has the listing there. There's flyers everywhere. And, but yes, we will accept cash. The driver will be Bill Long, so it's safe with him. And what we're going to do is just divvy it up between New Jersey and New York. So
Great. Thank you.
everything's appreciated.
Two quick last items. Town meeting, we have it on December 11th. And there's been, over the last couple of years, discussions about moving it to a Saturday. And we just can't move it to a Saturday because there's social issues and scheduling issues, and it's a town charter issue. So there's big steps to move it. I spoke to Frank Spillane, actually he's in the back. At some point, we'd like to have him come in and talk to us. He's got some good insights, some things that I didn't even think about. But right after the elections, after the holidays, we'll take a serious look at the pros and cons of moving a town meeting to a Saturday. Big picture, so you get some of the senior citizens and people that are not typically able to stay till midnight on a Monday night, be fresh and early on a Saturday. The flip side, a lot of people that can make the nights can't make the mornings on the weekends with kids and stuff. So I think it's a good discussion to have, and I'll put that, if it's all right with the board, on the agenda right after the holidays. And lastly, I got one notice, and citizens' input's not turning into, requests for money and stuff, but there was one notice that I was asked to read that kind of makes sense. Foxborough midget football cheerleaders, they competed over the last couple weeks, and the last competition was Saturday in Springfield. They made it to the big tournament. It's in Florida in the beginning of December, I think December 3rd. So it's a huge feat for them. They all worked hard. That's the good news. The bad news is the airfare and the accommodations on short notice and the holidays. Some of the parents are struggling, so they asked me if I could just kind of do a little reach out. If you want to find more about it, check in with the Foxborough Midget Football. If you want to send a small donation or a large donation, it's Box 479, Foxborough Midget Football over in at the Foxborough Post Office. So that's it for my going on and on. We have a public hearing schedule, so if we can read that into the record, and then if you guys want to come to the table. Thanks.
This is it, right?
Yep.
Oh, no, that's not good, Phyllis.
George Bailey.
The short chair.
That's why I didn't take it.
The Board of Selectmen of the Town of Foxborough will hold a public hearing at the Andrew A. Gallo Jr. Meeting Room, 40 South Street, Foxborough, Massachusetts, on Tuesday, November 13th, 2012, at 7:10 p.m., with the Board of Assessors, Chief Assessor, and the Finance Director to review property valuations and the total values of all property subject to taxation in each of the 4 classes of real property as defined by law. The Board of Selectmen will vote on the adoption of a residential factor and then determine within prescribed limits calculated by the Department of Revenue what percentage of the tax burden is to be borne by each property class. The Board of Assessors, Chief Assessor, and the Finance Director will provide information and data relevant to making these policy decisions, including the fiscal effect of the available alternatives. All interested persons are encouraged to attend the hearing and will have the right to provide oral and written comments or suggestions. Board of Selectmen, Foxborough, Massachusetts.
Great, thanks. And before we begin, I mean, we know you, but if you could just introduce yourselves for the people at home.
Tom Buckley, the Chairman of the Board of Assessors.
Randy Scollins, Finance Director.
Mike Larissy, member.
Garment Head Secretary.
Anya Simons, Chief Assessor.
Thank you all.
Great. Thank you. Just wanted to briefly review again a purpose, so it's very, very clear. Not that it wasn't with the notice, but the purpose of the hearing here is to review property valuations of the property classes subject to taxation, and to decide whether or not to maintain a split tax rate, eliminate the split, or modify the split. And that results in shifting the burden between residential and business classes of property, hence the terminology classification hearing. It's the burden is shifted based on the class of property that's taxed. Again, the context of the hearing here is it's a required annual touchstone along the way to having the town's tax rate set and ultimately approved by the Department of Revenue. Once the classification decision is made by this board, detailed documentation is forwarded to the Department of Revenue for final review. And assuming everything is in order, and we've already been told that our end is in order, we're looking to receive a quick approval, hopefully this week, if the board makes a decision this week, which would allow us to mail the 3rd and 4th quarter actual tax bills by the end of December, with February 1 and May 1 due dates. As far as how we would like to proceed here is, I know you have quite a bit of material, but as in the past, I was just going to hit the highlights in the executive summary, the first 3 pages, and then take any questions along the way. Don't feel like you have to hear me, just myself for the 3 pages, and then the Board of Assessors is going to make a recommendation. And then, of course, we'll take more questions from the board, and it's a public hearing, from the audience, and we can talk about the board can talk about what decision you might want to make. So, flipping to the executive summary, page 1, the fiscal 13 tax levy itself is increasing by $1.85 million or 5.07%. And to break down that increase, comprised of three components. 2.3%, or $836,000, as allowed by Prop 2.5, is 2.3% because the base includes debt exclusion, and you can't increase debt exclusion. So that's why the math works out to 2.3%. 1.34%, or $489,000, is increase in the tax levy related to excluded debt, primarily related to the library renovation project. This is the first year where the debt service, hits full force. It's not the full amount of the first year's library debt service because we've been amortizing, some debt excluded debt as well. So, but the net increase to debt excluded tax is $489,000. So the total increase on pre-existing property is 3.64%, or $1.32 million. And then we've had a relatively good year as far as new growth taxes added to the levy, so that adds another 1.43% to this increase in the levy, or $521,000. And just an important point to make, it's some folks may not understand that the levy is the levy, this $1.85 million or 5% increase. A policy change on tax rate, a policy decision on tax rate does not change the amount of taxes that are collected. The tax rate policy only determines the taxpayer's share of the burden, how the tax pie is distributed. So just to be clear, whatever decision here doesn't result in revenue to the town. I'm sure the board knows that. We continue to tax to the limits allowed by Prop 2.5 for the 16th consecutive year. However, it's important to note Foxborough has no general overrides built into the levy, whereas 10 out of the area communities have an average additional general override levy capacity of over 4.1 million. As far as values, which is what we're really here to focus on, the FY13 total taxable property value, relatively flat. It only increased in total by 28 basis points. Average single residential values, including condominiums, increased by 17 basis points. Average commercial and industrial values, the primary segment of the business values, are essentially, they increased by 16 basis points, or essentially the same as single-family residential. The average single-family property value, including condominiums, increased in FY13 by $601 to $364.5 thousand. The average single-family property value, excluding condos, decreased in FY13 by $880 to $375,900. The residential class of property in totals 74.23% of all property value, which has been about the average for the prior 2 years, give or take. The remaining 25.77% of property value is associated with business classes, commercial, industrial, and personal property. Over the last 3 years, residential property has increased from a low of 72.8% of the total value or share to 74.23%, down a little bit from last year, which is important, as we'll discuss in a bit. This shift results in the continuing trend of more of the tax burden, if a single rate, falling on residential taxpayers than business taxpayers. However, last year, the Board of Selectmen equalized this trend by splitting the tax rate, which had the effect of maintaining the prior split of the tax burden, the prior split being the reval year of 2010, which is a clean year for the town, revaluation completed, as well as that's when the vast majority of all the new major growth in town, from Route 1, Chestnut Green, Foxborough Lodge, major apartment complexes, was captured. So that's for us, that's our benchmark year. The tax impact to all residential taxpayers in fiscal 13, resulting from this 3-year trend in value shifting away from business taxpayers, is $797,000, or about $110 on average, an additional tax burden in FY13 alone, if the town reverted to a single tax rate. But we'll talk more about shifting. As far as the tax rate itself, again, this is the decision that the board makes. So rather than get into multi-scenarios, I just thought here I'd describe two. Assuming no split tax rate, then the tax rate per thousand in assessed value will increase by 7%, or 96 cents for residential classes, and would decrease by 1.1% for business classes of property, or 17 basis points. Assuming a single rate, then over the last 10 years, the tax rate would have increased in total by 95 cents from $13.74 to $14.69. So basically, this would be the whole increase for residential. Assuming the current split was maintained, the residential tax rate would increase by 65 cents as opposed to 96 to $14.38, and business rate would increase by 71 cents to $15.57. And we'll come back to rate shortly. As far as the tax bill, assuming a single tax rate, average single-family tax, including condominiums, would increase by 7.17%, or $358 to $5,354. Average single-family tax, excluding condos, would increase by 6.74%, or $359 to $5,523. Over the last 10 years, average residential tax bill would have increased by $1,816, or $182 a year. The average commercial tax would decline under this single rate by 59 basis points, or by $147 to $24,673. The average industrial tax would decline by 1.62%, or $155 to $9,447. And the average personal property tax would increase 5.35%, or $117 to $2303. The reason why you're seeing a different movement with personal property, couple of things going on there. One is there's been a pruning of personal property accounts, slightly fewer accounts, but we captured a significant amount of new growth particularly from two personal property, the biggest two personal property taxpayers in town, Verizon and Mass Electric. So what you have going on there is a slightly small number of accounts, but a big increase in the value from two customers based on their infrastructure investments as values set by the state, I believe, HANA. So that's why you're seeing a difference going on with them. Assuming the current split tax rate, the average single-family tax, including condominiums, would increase by 4.91%, or $245. The average single-family tax rate, excluding condos, would increase by 4.49%, or $232. And the 10-year average increase would have been $1,703, $170. The average commercial tax would increase under maintain the current split by 5.36%, or $1,331 to $26,151. And the average industrial tax would increase by 4.28%, or $411. The average personal property tax would increase by 11.66%, or $255. If in FY13, assuming a single tax rate, the top 12 taxpayers would comprise 16.29%, or $6.23 million of the tax levy. That's the top 12. The remaining business taxpayers would comprise 12.33%, or 4.7% of the tax levy. So about almost 11 million between all of the business taxpayers. As far as area community comparisons, the best data that we have is for fiscal 12, but I think it's important to understand, how do we look compared to other towns, and this is some of the most solid data that the Department of Revenue compiles, which is on what they call 101 class, or single-family homes, excluding condos. Foxborough's fiscal 12 total valuation of $1.6 billion of single-family property is 15.3% less than compared to the average of the 15 area communities that surround us. 10 of the 15 towns had higher total valuations than Foxborough. And that's largely a function of the number of parcels. We have fewer parcels, about 16.3% fewer parcels than the area communities. So 12 of the 15 towns had a larger amount of single-family parcels. And our average single-family valuation of $377,000 in FY12 is 35 basis points higher than the average of the 15 area communities, but we're solidly in the middle. Same thing with the average single-family tax bill of $5,174 is 3.6% less than the average, but again, we still puts us right squarely in the middle with the surrounding towns. 9 of the 15 area communities have adopted a split tax rate, residential being lower than business in fiscal 12. And the factors chosen by these other communities is on page 13, and it was just interesting to note that there was only one other community that has a factor that's a lesser shift to business, and that's North Attleboro because they just brought it back last year and they're wading back into it, slightly less than us. But all the other 8 communities that have it around us have a shift that shifts more to business than Foxborough currently does. But everybody's got their own reasons for doing that. As far as shifting the FY13 tax burden from residential to business, the board has the option, Board of Selectmen has the option annually to maintain the single tax rate or establish a split tax rate. It's a decision that you make every year. Shifts of up to 17.36% of the tax burden can be approved by the board. Couple of examples, a small shift of 0.35% would reduce the average residential tax bill by $17.58 and increase business tax by $97.45. If we chose a factor that was chosen last year, 2.08% shift, which is close, approximates what it was last year because it changed from year to year, that would shift about $109 away from residential and increase business tax by $571. Last year, what was shifted was $102 away from residential, resulting in a $542 increase on average for business classes, and the increases go on from there. I believe the Board of Assessors at this time is prepared to make the recommendation.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Randy. The Board of Assessors, we met last week, and after going over all the information that was submitted to us, we have voted a majority, unanimous vote to keep the split tax rate. And what we did vote for is last year, as you well know, we came in for the first time in the history of Foxborough and recommended a split. And at the time, we recommended a 2.08% split from the tax burden from business to residential. This year, what we're going to recommend to you is a smaller split. We're going to recommend a 1.42% split, splitting the tax burden again from residential to business. And if you want to go to page 4 in the packet, I'll explain to you how we came to that recommendation. So if you look on page 4, and the numbers that you see here, this is if the current split was maintained. So this would be the 2.08% if we carried that into today. And if you could see in the residential column there, the average tax would increase 4.91%. You go down to commercial, and you have a 5.36% increase. Industrial, 4.28% increase, and personal property, 11.66% increase. So again, page 4 is carrying the 2.8% split into today. If you look on page 5, this is if you decided that you wanted to go back to a 1-1 split. And as you look at these numbers here, you see the residential goes up 7.17%, commercial drops 0.59%, industrial drops 1.62%, and personal property, that still increases again 5.35%. But Randy explained to you why that number is skewed so high. And then you go to page 6, and this page 6 is the actual 1.42% split. So we went back, not to reiterate everything Randy had talked about, but you go back to the fiscal year 2010, and again, that was when we did the reval that year, and everything was, every property was looked at, every value was looked at, and we were very comfortable with all the information we had there, and that's when we found that there was a huge disparity between the commercial business values and the residential. And we also found out at that time that, the state had come in prior to that and basically told us that our commercial values were too low. So we had to bring some of those up, but there was a huge disparity there. And that's when we came in and recommended that split. So we figured during our meeting that, to try to keep that burden the same as that what you approved last year, was to come down again to that 1.42%. And as you look at the numbers here, you see residential, that bill there would go up 5.64%, commercial will go up 3.47%, industrial up 2.4%, personal property will go up 9.65%. And again, if you want to go over to page 8, you can see where all those numbers kind of come together and they make sense. And you'll see where the tax burden shift is. So if you look at page 8 again, and you look across the columns, and you see the percentage totals of the values there. So you have residential from fiscal year 2010, 72.8, and then you go over to, fiscal year 2013, you can see, that the residential is picking up more of the share there. But if you bring it back over all the way to the right there, the 1.42% shift comes down to, in the middle, underneath the shaded bar, you see the tax levy limit times the 1.42%, and you see the tax burden shift. This is the actual shift from residential over to commercial industrial. So if you look right below that, you'll see the average residential tax reduction, 75.32. That is if we didn't go back to, if you didn't do a split this year. There's a lot of numbers here, I know that. But, that's really how we came to all that conclusion. We didn't, again, we voted to keep the split rate again this year, but we looked at, again, just trying to keep the parity with the tax burden shift from last year and just carrying that over into this year. So, again, so it would be the 1.42% that we would recommend. Obviously, you can decide whatever you want to do with that aspect of it.
Okay. Without using the numbers and percentages, I had a brief discussion with you earlier in the week on very layman's terms so people can understand it. What happened last year with respect to the valuations, one going up, one going down, and what the recommendation was last year, what you tried to achieve?
Yeah.
Just so we have some context to last year and then moving into
Sure,
this year.
last year again. So last year was a revaluation year. I mean, 2010, sorry.
Yep.
So when we captured all that new information, and it was, that was really in-depth. If you understand the reval year, there's a company comes in and looks at every single piece of property throughout the whole town. And they came up with the values that they came up with. Also, and again, and at that time, we found that if you had carried a 1-1 split, the commercial industrial values dropped significantly, as you can imagine. In Foxborough, we use income and expense approach for commercial and business properties. So it's not just what the building was built for; it's all about income and expenses. Mm-hmm. And as you well know, that over the last 4 or 5 years, the values and businesses haven't been that great. So all of a sudden now, all those numbers start dropping. Well, every time you raise your hand at town meeting and you want to raise money, that number has to be raised, and has to be raised no matter what the values are in the
So when the businesses dropped, what happened to the residential?
The residential now has to capture more of that value, so now there was a huge gap there. So that's when we brought it down. We brought the 2.08%, and it kind of leveled it off a little bit. Obviously, they both went up, but you would have had a huge drop in the commercial industrial last year. They would have actually got a lower increase, and the residential would have got a huge increase.
Okay.
Yeah, it was significant. So that's when we came in last year with that split.
Okay.
So again, so now moving forward, as you could see, if you decided that you even wanted to go down back to the 1-1 split, that's a huge gap again. I think it's just we're just looking at feathering it and just keeping that parity the same.
Perhaps a two-step process to
That's
get back to that.
totally
That's
up to
long
the
term.
board, yeah. But that's really how we looked at it. We captured that information.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from your side? Okay. Before the board gets into the discussion, if you would, this is a public hearing, and over the last couple months, we kept mentioning to people, if you had input, this was coming up, contact the board members. Is there anyone here tonight that wanted to speak on the split rate versus the non-split rate? Seeing none. Open up for the board for discussion.
Should we close the public hearing? If nobody wants to speak now, should we leave it open?
If we close the public hearing and we ask more information that's not here, I don't think they can give more new information. So I'd like to keep it open for a little longer.
Okay.
So it just allows us to have a dialogue back and forth. So, under discussion.
I'll go first. Assessed values, I'm gonna go give a little bit of the history lesson, not to you, but a few other people, per se. Back when I moved to Foxborough, going on 16 and a half, 17 years ago, assessed values of property were 2/3 of what the value of the property was in town, a residential home. So if a house was worth $600,000 in the retail market, the assessed value is somewhere around $400,000 by the taxation, for taxation. Now, it's reversed itself, and a home that is assessed for $405,000 now appraised at $364,000. It's taken a huge lopside on that. I'm sure everybody here knows how much your property values dropped. It's close to 30% in the town of Foxborough, on average. A lot of people can't even take advantage of the refi to the lower interest rates because their values are so assessed low and they bought at a higher market, so they can't even take advantage of a lower 3.5% rate. Some of it's down to 3.25%, wherever. So you have to basically go back into PMI because you've lost your less than 20% of the value you don't have to yourself. You know what I'm saying? So how many people have filed for abatements? This is probably a question for you, Randy, this year for their home residences in the town of Foxborough.
They can't file them until they actually get an actual tax bill because the values are just set, but maybe last year, have a sense, how many abatements were filed last year?
I forget the number. I can't.
Is it like 150, 160, something like that?
Maybe 150, 160 abatements.
And we encourage that process, we're not afraid of that process because we think it only makes for fairer values, to receive
So
abatements.
if you have I'm really not trying to get off track here, but I just want to understand this completely. So if your home's assessed at $364 and you're paying $405, and you have a certified appraiser come in, you bring that appraisal into the town of Foxborough, what's the process?
Well, I just want to explain to you, our values are based on market value, and when we assess, our assessment for 2013 is based on all the sales of calendar year 2011. So we do we do all statistical analysis of all those sales. We go in the field and we look at all the sales and come up with that. And since it's market driven, we have no control. That's by law. We have to use that market value from that period. That's how it is.
So,
and
but
based on what was there January 1st.
so what is all right? Here's my next question: how many people were granted those reduced assessments after abating?
But not knowing the figures offhand, I can't give you an exact number. But if there's a valid reason for an abatement, if there was an error on our part, let's say some information was incorrect, the board will grant the abatement. But if people just say, oh, my value is too high, then, what's the reasoning behind there? So it has to be a reason, something has to be wrong in order to get an abatement.
If I can get that, I'm an appraiser, I've been a certified appraiser for 20 years.
Slide this over a little bit.
It has to be market supported in order for us to either adjust the value up and down. Obviously the market values have changed significantly over the past few years. It is coming back, without a doubt, it's coming back slowly, but it is coming back. But we can't go off. It's a very personal thing when someone is dealing value in properties, in money, in situations of the house. But the only what we do is we don't decide what the value is. We have to support what the market's telling us the value is.
Right.
So
but I
if they
understand
come into us and they say, listen, here are 3 comparables, and again, they have to give us comparable houses that are similar.
well, that's what you would get with an appraisal. You're going to get
That
more
is
than
correct.
that.
That is correct. And if they give us comparables that show that our value is off, we would, without a doubt, look at that and reassess the value. There's no question about it. But some people come in, and they have a 2,000 square foot house, and they'll give us comparable sales of 900 square foot ranches.
Oh, I
Because it's in the
understand.
same street.
But
I know, but
with a
people, the
real
layman,
estate appra-
people don't, a lot of people don't come in with real estate appraisals.
Well, I'm just saying, let's say you just had your house, a lot of people are refinancing, so a lot of people getting.
Right, well, if it's recent though,
appraisals.
we can't use it, again, it's 2 calendar years back.
So you have to use 2 calendar years back. So
Correct.
that's what I'm trying to
Yeah,
understand.
you have to use 2 calendar years back.
We've
So
had-
2 calendar years back, hang
Yeah.
on, Bob. The appraisal was $30,000 higher.
Right.
So
But it's
in
all
two-
relative,
so
though.
in
It's
two
it's all
years-
relative. Everybody's on the
right.
same,
But
on
you
the same
go-
playing field.
So in 2 years from now, you're gonna go by the appraisal.
Yeah. But it was the same thing back in 2003, 4, and 5, when everything was shooting skyrocket.
Right.
We were in 2005 looking at values from 2003 that was $50,000
So it's like a
less.
2-year
Yep,
backslap.
yep. We've had people come
Yeah.
in with appraisals, and what they'll do is they'll hire appraisal to value their property in the.
Today.
No, 2 years ago.
Okay.
And they'll look at and the same thing that HANA does, you just look at the sales for that calendar year, and it has to be a 12-month calendar year. We need 12 months of sales. So they'll come in with that. We have it all the time. People come in and go, I just got my house refinanced, my house isn't worth that. We can't use it because that value is from 2 calendar years ago.
So that's why I want you to clarify this,
Yep.
because the question has been asked and raised many times to me.
Yes, that's
So
that's it.
That's why I want to clarify that.
But one other thing, you have to know too, what somebody comes in with an appraisal, what was the appraisal for? Was it for refinance? There are different, it wasn't for assessing, it was to refinance the property, not for assessment purposes. So, we get a lot of appraisals, and the appraisals are only as good as the appraiser did the appraisal. A lot of times I get stuff and I go, why are they going to rent them to look at a ranch house or a cape house? We have them right here in Foxborough. So an appraisal is as good as, as
So,
the
but
appraiser is.
as he stated, a professional appraisal is about as good as evidence as you're gonna get. But it would be based on 2 years ago.
But actually, Hannah goes out in the field constantly. She's always out in the field, doing on-site inspections. Somebody can come to the office and ask, and Hannah's constantly making appointments, going out and reviewing, and then comparing to the sales database that she has in the system, because we have to maintain that. So I mean, our chief assessor here does it. This is her profession. I think she does a bang-up job in responding to challenges to value. We welcome that, as I said before. We want the values to be as tight as possible to make the equity, the burden, as equitable as possible. And so she's very capable of doing that, certainly on the residential side.
So basically, that answers a lot of people's questions. That, because I've seen a decline in houses as far as appraisals go. I haven't seen an increase, and this board's telling me that they're coming back a little bit.
Relative to,
2 years ago.
Yeah,
Yep.
the bottom.
Not now.
No, to the bottom.
That's what you gotta kind of specify clearer.
Yeah.
It's not based on today's market. So, because when people tell me that, property values
Oh, no, I'm
decline.
sorry. Bobby Hedge is talking about values in Foxborough today are slowly climbing. They're coming back.
I don't see that.
Well, he's an
Yeah.
appraiser.
Yeah, well,
Where you looking?
Yeah, no, that's what I want to hear, I want to hear that my value's coming up.
And I said it's very slight, but it's, I mean, I'm not, you talk about, I was just telling them in the office, you go in Boston, and they're coming back 10, 15% easily.
Yeah.
Foxborough, and believe me, this is just that 1 to 2%, 3%, you're not gonna go, wow, my value's going up. You're not gonna see it, but it's edging up there, and it's not going down. So
That's the good news.
It's not
It's
going
not going
down.
down anymore. That's the good news.
And that's today.
Well, I
See,
think
who
that
knows? So-
clarifies a lot of things for a lot of people, just that question.
And it's something that we were going to talk about at the end, I think was perfect for this, is all of the property information, all the cards that we have in the assessor's office is going online by the end of the calendar year.
end of the calendar year, that's the goal.
So
A couple
you
things
will,
that needs to work
everybody
out.
in town now will be able to go online and see their property and their neighbor's property, because that's not a secret. And you can see where your house value is compared to everybody else's. And if you see a huge discrepancy, you see that, they're showing an extra bathroom that you don't have, or an extra bedroom, and if you have a 4-bedroom house and you're only being taxed on assessor's office, if you want to come in and tell us that too, that's fine too. But that's something that's going to really help, really tighten up all the values in town, because we're there. I think we're comfortably at the 90 percentile right now with the abatements that we've got over the last 2 years, and we found some discrepancies, and it's all being fixed, and the data is very, very good now.
So we're very confident to put it out there, and we'll probably do, because this will be, we're finally moving out of the Stone Age here with providing this information publicly. So we'll probably look to do a dog and pony, to show, it's very brief in January. And then we would invite people to go online when it's available to look at it, and please come in if you have, to the Board of Assessors office if you have a question about your value.
Okay.
Okay, so now, commercial property, last year you saw an increase?
I'm residential appraiser, I'm not
All right,
commercial.
yeah.
It was a
Both relatively
both
flat.
relatively flat, but there
But there was,
was
but there's more value captured in total for business classes of property. So therefore, the burden, if you maintain the current split, the burden would then be a little bit more disproportionate than the target the Board of Assessors has established. So what they're doing is they're acknowledging the fact that the business values in total have edged up a little bit. So with a split tax rate, it's appropriate with the same logic that was used last year to feather back the split to acknowledge the increase in the share burden now being assumed, or would be assumed by business classes.
So basically, the advice you would give to everybody today, that if you have just had your house appraised, don't discard that information, keep it so that you can compare it in the future.
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so
Thank you.
what the board has done, and they took the liberty of evaluating, going back to the 0, which we had last year, keeping what we have this year as a 2.8 differential that we voted last year, or in effect splitting it in the middle and lowering to 1.4 the disparity between the businesses and the residential. So our options are we could pick A, B, or C, or do none of the above and something
You can
else.
do whatever you want. Hey, there are many options that you got a scorecard on page 14, or anything in between. I can't say the sky's the limit, but up to 17.36% from no split to shifting 17. And there are a couple of towns, I'm not suggesting it, but there are a couple of towns that actually do that, that shift all the way around here.
Those towns don't have a lot of businesses in it either.
Actually, Norwood does one.
Norwood is
They
that?
go all the way.
Two of the ones
Yeah.
that have a ton of business because the proportionate shift, it's a very, very large industrial commercial base. So the proportionate shift doesn't hurt them in terms of the dollars because it's dissipated over a big base. So the tax increase is not that bad. If you did it the other way, shifted a 98% residential into a 2% industrial, it'd be a trend.
Yeah, so it's completely the opposite of what you would think.
Right.
Exactly.
And the other option we have, and I know, Randy, you said you'd like an answer tonight.
Paul, I don't want to push the board.
If the board, there's a lot of information here, if you didn't get a chance to go through it, we could put it off to the next meeting, which is, we'll get a full agenda next Tuesday, but we could come in early for this, if you need more time to take it under advisement. So any more discussion? Sure.
The message I've been getting is that the commercial property owners think they took a big hit, not only with the tax increase, but also in the last few years, you've been increasing fees. They've taken a lot of hits, plus the economy is not good. So, and I think when a town, and it's always printed in the books, when the town lists a split tax rate, I think that sends a message to prospective businesses that are looking at places to move into. And if you have a split rate, does that send a message, well, you know what, maybe they're not as business-friendly as this town over here that doesn't have a split tax rate? So that's my concern. I'm concerned about the business owners in town who live in town. They took a hit, and I would like to go back to a was it 1-to-1?
No split.
No split.
Yeah,
That-
which would be
that would
about
be-
7.17% increase on
That-
residential.
Yeah, that would mean. The amount of tax revenue coming into the town is not going to change.
Right.
So it's not like we'd be getting more with a split tax, or we would be getting less with just a non-split tax. But I'm concerned about the
Sounds great.
message, and I'm concerned about the hit that the local businesses are taking.
I think the flip side to that, I mean, what we saw last year was, because of the anomaly in the economy, you know, in the businesses going down relatively quickly in the residential, as much as the shift went to the businesses a little bit, the spike didn't hit the residential as much. And I think if it went the other way, you would have heard a loud scream from the residential that the taxes went way up. So I think we tried to buffer it.
Right.
So in my eyes, we either, you know, if we want to get back to that 0, and there's a lot of merit to that.
Yeah,
But do we do it in one drop where now the resident's gonna, by doing that, the residents is gonna take a
Yeah,
big hit
no, I
right
understand
now.
that, but we're also becoming known in the area, as you can read in the newspapers, as a non-friendly, non-business friendly, non-friendly to business. And what does that say?
Oh, it depends on who's out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
trust me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's
there's
one today.
strong arguments on both sides too, so,
Yeah.
or loud arguments, I should
Well,
say.
if I can pick up on what Ginny's saying, what it really comes down to is, and I'd like to know the number of how many people that own commercial property in Foxborough actually live in the town. And I don't know if I stated this clearly last year. When you have debt exclusions for the library, possibly the new town hall, some turf fields, the high school, whatever, the people that own commercial property in this town don't have a voice at town meeting. They don't have any representation at all. So you now go to town meeting, you know, now you voted in at town meeting to have more debt exclusions, which we've had 5 or so in the last 8 years, 9 years, something like that, right, Randy? So now the tax base, because the debt exclusion to collect has gone up. These people don't have any interest in the school systems. They don't have any, I mean, maybe public safety, of course, they own property. But they have no voice at the table. They don't get to vote. I'd love to know what that percentage of people that own property don't have the voice or the vote at town hall, at town meeting.
I don't think there's any way we can tell you that.
Well, I think there is. I think I could figure it out pretty quickly. I mean, if I just find out who owns those properties, the commercial properties in town, they either live in town or they don't live in town.
No, you're gonna see LLCs and corporations, and
You're not gonna
it's
see
hard to
town
find out.
residents.
Well,
Plus you have all the personal property as well.
right, well, I'm just wondering what that is, but my point is they don't have a voice at the table.
I think what you can say, Mark, is that your point is correct generally. Business interests in most communities are not represented in terms of having a voice and a vote in the town's political process in the same proportion that homeowners do, because homeowners basically 100% are eligible to vote, whereas some percent of business owners are not. And so it's always the case is that there's an inequity there. And that's a true fact. Now, I don't think we can tell you exactly what the numbers are, but I think what we can say with a fair degree of precision is that a lot of businesses don't have a voice in town politics. And that's the case. And it's not fair. That's unfortunate, but that's a reality that exists pretty much everywhere.
But then my point is now, a town votes to have debt exclusions to bring its, high school back up to date, the public safety building, the Hearn School, soon to be this and that. And we're raising our own tax burden, and then I feel like we're passing the buck to the commercial base.
It's a shared responsibility.
Yeah.
Everybody's benefiting from the
Yeah,
community.
they're using the infrastructure and the services and the value of the town. If the value of the town is high, the business is high, so it's,
I think if I may, Mr. Chairman, I think the interesting point you make, Mark, is that this community, unlike a lot of communities, I mean, let's face it, predominantly the businesses don't vote, homeowners do. So in a lot of communities, boards of selectmen, elected representatives find it very easy politically to transfer that tax burden from homeowners to the businesses. And that's why you see around us, I think, many split tax rates, because it's an easy decision to make. I think it's a wonderful comment about Foxborough, and particularly about the boards of assessors and the boards of selectmen who jointly make this decision. that you've resisted that temptation for many, many years. And this was the very first year that you ever split the rate. You ever transferred that tax burden onto businesses. Because I think you correctly adjudged that that's not good business practice. It's not a good way to make friends in the business community. And the only reason we finally did it this year was because of the proportionate shift in value that occurred, and it was just a logical decision. But the fact that the board is, the assessors are recommending at least undoing half of the split that was done last year, if not undoing it altogether, and the fact that you're having this debate and making the points you're making, I think really shows that this is a politically mature community where we think hard about our partnership with the business community. And we don't just reflexively take the easy political way out and shift the burden. We don't. And that's good.
That was my next speech.
I knew this.
Lorraine?
I got it all written.
Stole my
here. You gave it
fire
to me.
again, Kevin.
I think, again, going back to the original reason why this was actually done for the first time and using that as the starting point, the easy thing would have been to leave it that way. Having recognized, I guess, the commercial values are inching upward in the right direction, and making that adjustment shows that it is the town's intent to get back to a single tax rate. It's not our intention to take advantage of businesses forever, or, we're trying to avoid a spike in a situation that was going to affect, 75% of the taxpayers for the town, which are the residential taxpayers. So I think by addressing that spike, last year we did the right thing, and now coming back towards that neutral place, again, the Board of Assessors, I feel, is recommending the right thing. And again, I think what you said, Jim, too, that the businesses do utilize the services of the town, so, I don't feel like there's an inequity there. And when you look at the other choices that other towns have made, I think, again, we're going in the right direction to where, we intend to be a business-friendly community, and I think we should be viewed that way.
I think, Lorraine, too, also, you made a good point. I mean, any business coming in here is going to be educated business, and they're going to look and see, what was the split?
Right.
They're not going to say, okay, it's a split. What is the split?
Right.
And if they come in and see, okay, we're at, what are we, 2.07?
Yeah, 2.07, we
Okay,
recommend
if they saw
1.2.
it's going up, they're going to think, okay, it's going up, what's going on here? They're going to come in and see it's going down.
Right.
That's a very positive thing, I think, for business to see that, we are taking this seriously. We've done it, last year was the first time since we've been in, ever. And it's not lightly, we're not taking it lightly, we're going down. We're trying to get back to where we can do it, so I think that's a good point. We have very educated, any business right now is coming in is very educated, and they're checking all towns, so.
Sure, Jenny?
They may check to see that this rate is going down. I mean, but it's still gonna be split, and they aren't gonna know what it was previously.
I
Do you know what
published, I
I'm
published
saying?
the
No, it's published.
history,
It's published
3-year history on the website. It's on the site, they can see that.
Okay, but just one more thing, and I forgot to write it down. Not only have the businesses been hit, like with fees, like I said, but also especially the downtown businesses, everybody hits them for donations about things. So the downtown businesses really do contribute that little extra to the community.
Sure.
So I mean, I really have a hard time putting not making it, to me, fair, just a single tax rate, so that it's fair. I mean, especially in these economic times.
So you guys had a lot of discussion on going back to the zero differential, the 50/50.
Yeah.
And as the businesses came up and the tax burden came down, but not all the way, what that would do to the residential. You had a lot of discussion on that scenario?
Yes.
We have been for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And you thought the reason you didn't recommend that because the residential hit would be,
Well,
Increase
if
would
you
be
just
too
look
much.
at that right now, yeah, that's a huge hit for residential. And just go
7%.
from where we are today back down. If that's what you wanted to do, that's a huge hit.
and I think that's what my concern is. I'd
How
love
can
for it to be 0-0, but,
Residents take
Hmm?
that. How can the residents take that huge
Yeah,
hit?
you can't, because we're not
It's
there
not
yet.
fair.
yeah. Yeah. Hold on, George, let us finish and I'll recognize you.
Linda?
Linda, sure.
So, I depend on you guys for this big time, because figures are just, are not my thing, but my thoughts are, right after we did it last year, my thoughts were, crap, I think I messed up, because I felt like, you know, all the other years that I did it, I always said, no, it should be, you know, we shouldn't do that. So I listened to you guys, I listened to Randy about, you know, the situation that we were in, and made that decision that way. And I think that we wouldn't be looking at such a huge difference this year if we didn't make that boo-boo last year. My mistake.
Yeah.
I'm just,
Right.
that's what I'm thinking. I mean, we're all saying, oh, no, this year is gonna be worse because, you know, residential's gonna get hit harder. Well, yes, they are, because, why? Because we automatically took that 2%. I just, you know, it's
Right.
killing me, because I feel like here we are again representing the numbers, and maybe I'm wrong on the numbers, but I just feel that obviously if we hadn't done that last year, the increase wouldn't have been as high.
Well, I think, again, last year was such an anomaly. I mean, I've been on
It
the
was.
board, I don't even know, it might be 9, it could be 12, I don't remember.
I know-
9 years I've been on the
As-
board.
as many
10,
times as
11, I don't know,
you've
remember.
been in front of us, yeah.
But never, ever would I ever thought that I would be sitting in front of you saying, we gotta
No,
split the rate.
and that was
Never,
hard. It was
never.
hard. I know it was hard.
My brother didn't talk to me for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm sure he did.
And I knew that, I wasn't gonna say anything, I didn't want to put you on the spot.
But that, but you really look at those numbers last year, and it was just, you know, and I don't want to screw this up, but Mike Capron always used to say that we're the protectors of fairness.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's basically the Board of Assessors do. We just
Right.
make sure that everybody's got, you know, paying what, you know, they're supposed to be paying, and everything, and that's all we really do. You just look at the numbers that way. You have to take everything out of it from the outside and all the other, you know, things pushing on you. Just look at it, what's right and what's wrong when you're looking at those numbers. And last year was just, I think you did make the right decision last year,
Linda,
because it
you
was so
really-
far off.
The board really shouldn't beat itself up about the decision last year, because
Oh, I'm
frankly.
not talking about the board, I'm only talking about
Well,
Linda.
you shouldn't either,
I'm
because
only talking about me.
if
So-
ever there was a perfect situation, you know, the perfect storm, if you will, of, you know, debt coming online due to Prop 2.5 overrides, a proportionate shift in values where the homeowner with residential is gonna take a big adjustment, a bigger share. It was a situation that cried out to give some relief to the homeowner. It just was. So I don't think you should feel badly about that. It was a logical decision. And I think, you know, it was made with a great deal of consternation. I remember when we talked about it, but it was an eminently logical decision. Now what I think is being said to the board is that market shift is beginning to correct. The amount of new taxation coming online due to overrides and whatnot is lessening. It's now you've got an opportunity to undo what we had to do, frankly, last year. I think the only real question is, you undo half of it, or you undo all of it, or do you undo 3/4 of it?
Well,
Kind of up to you.
The shock and awe of that whole Kevin thing last year was, it was doomsday when we made that decision. The town was about $2 million in projected debt, and looking at, you know, major layoffs, came right out of your mouth, came out of more than one mouth here. We're looking at guaranteed layoffs. It was doomsday around here.
Yeah, but that really doesn't have anything to do with
Well,
the
it does,
tax.
because that's what made the board have a major effect on how we decided
Yeah,
last year.
yeah.
And it was a very big thing. You were talking about $2 million deficit to the operation budget. You were talking about, you know, layoffs, and the teachers were saying, oh, we're gonna have 50 layoffs to the parents and the PTO, and it came back to us. And then we took, oh, this is what was happening in my world, okay? So maybe it wasn't yours, it was mine. And then people around town were really pissed. A lot of people were really mad at us. And we had to take, that was a bigger hit I took last year than a lot of things. Second biggest, that's for sure. But, no, it was a big adjustment for this community. And then at the end of the year, we had a chance to give back another $403,000 and adjust it back a little bit and we did, and we kept the money. We voted to keep the money and tax to the 2.3% instead of 2.5%. And we, instead of giving it back to the townspeople in a little bit of a tax break. And
Well,
had that-
we gave
Yeah,
it back, but we gave it back a different way.
Yeah,
We gave it
just
back
so
by
clear, we didn't keep the
reducing
money, it was,
one of the Prop
we
2.5
reduced
votes.
a
debt
bond,
exclusion.
$400,000 to pay off a bond early.
I'm just saying, we've had opportunities. We went from 2 million in operation budget, and the skies are falling. You said it yourself publicly, Jim. I believe you did anyways. It was a long year. And it was like, you know, and now we went from gloom and doom to we got a significant, you know, extra budget. So I don't know, it got very confusing at the end. And here we are again, we're having the same conversation, and we're projected to have extra income this year on the operating budget. And if I'm wrong, somebody correct me.
I'll take it. We don't want to say we have extra income this year, because we don't even have a revenue forecast done yet.
We
I don't
just
think
did one,
anybody-
Kevin, for the town hall. We were gonna use revenue forecast.
Well, that's-
for-
Yes.
That's looking at something in
That's something
isolation.
else.
Right now, I'm pulling it all,
Right.
all pieces, spending, you know, estimates and revenue estimates.
All that's, it's important for the board to understand, the total amount of taxes we're gonna raise, i.e. how many employees we can have, how much money we can spend, is not affected whatsoever by this decision in front of you tonight. Think of it this way, the pie is this big. Whatever you decide tonight, the pie is identically the same size. We're going to raise the exact amount of taxes, either way. The only decision before you tonight is proportionately who pays what part of the tax burden. Does the residential homeowner pay a little more or a little less? And to the extent they pay a little more or a little less, business pays a
And
little more or a little less.
I think we all understand that. I think that's perfectly clear. But I'm just saying, last year's decision, when Linda's in her defense, she took a lot of hits just like everybody else, when we split it a little bit to the percentage, that it was, to many people, and this board, was because of that
It
decision.
wasn't until after the fact when all of a sudden there was other discussions about, you know, found money, so to speak, type of things. That's when I got.
I think,
They're two different.
my recollection on
I
the,
don't know.
Yeah.
But the-
Anyways,
but
what
I-
I was trying to say was, you know, we're looking at this as, you know, the townspeople are gonna take this huge hit this year, and they're gonna take this huge hit because we made that decision last year. That's why it looks so much worse than it actually would be, if we stayed, you know, if we went back to the
Right.
zero from where we are now.
Accurate.
So,
No,
Yeah,
that's
that's
not what,
accurate.
I
that's
think
not
that's,
what they said.
That's not
that's not,
accurate.
what is it? What's the matter?
No, it's not
No, I think
huge.
I
she's
think if you let
saying,
her finish, she'll
no, I
explain
think what
exactly.
she's
What
saying
I'm
is,
saying
if we
is
didn't
that
split it last
If
year.
we didn't split
Yeah.
it last year, the amount wouldn't be, the percentage wouldn't be as much this year.
From going to
Because they're
2.08
saying-
back to 0.
Yeah,
Unless
but-
you're not saying that,
but
if
look
we
at
go
the-
back to a zero, it's not gonna be a huge hit. Is it gonna be a huge hit for the residential?
This year, yes.
Please let me just
Yes.
work this through myself.
Yep.
Okay, so it will be a huge hit.
Yes,
And
7.
it's gonna be 7.17, right?
Yep.
Okay, so if we didn't take that,
If we stayed at a single last
Last year.
year, what would it been
what
this
would it
year?
have been?
a good question.
Certainly wouldn't be 7.17.
Right, but think about how much more the residentials would have to pay if we didn't do that last year. So they would have had a larger hit last year and not as much this year, you know what I'm saying?
I think that's what she's asking. If it was 7% this year,
I'm saying it's
if they didn't do it
7%,
last year, what would it be?
What would it be?
I don't
Have to
know.
take a look at that.
I don't
Yeah,
know
we'd
those
have to
figures.
look at that, but it was significant hit last year if you didn't split it last year. And I can't remember those
And the
numbers.
average business tax rate was actually going down, you know, a couple points, and the residential rate was going up, you know, a significant amount of points.
And that's what we
just-
struggled with last year.
Yeah.
And we're struggling, how can we how can we see the commercial get a break and the residential people take more of a hit?
Well,
forget.
and that, right, and that's fine for your board, but do you understand, like, our budget, we'd like to see other things take hits instead of the people themselves too. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, I absolutely do.
understand.
I don't know
You
if I
have-
don't know if they're the same scenario though. I mean, again,
Well-
like you said, the pie's gonna be the pie, and it's gonna be the same.
Correct me if I'm mistaken, my memory's not that good anymore. But last year, I believe the shift saved the average homeowner about $100.
Correct, that is correct.
$101.
Okay,
Bear
so
in
what's
mind-
this year's?
Bear in mind, Linda, what we
75 from a
saved,
single.
what's being discussed as a enormous shift is $100. That's the enormous shift.
Right.
The percents are big, but because the residential share of the town's revenue is so huge, that 7% shift only added up to $100 per average homeowner. Conversely,
Hold on a second. George,
you shift that,
I'm getting complaints at the table. Your voices just keeps coming up. Can you just hold it? I will recognize you once we finish this discussion.
Anybody's
Convert-
welcome to go outside and speak.
conversely, were you to completely undo the shift this year, I believe if I've heard the numbers correctly, again, I'm just trying to find it.
Yeah,
It means giving the homeowner a $109 greater tax bill on average, correct?
And theirs would drop,
$358 on average.
drop.
On average.
Average based on
You got that number there?
380.
Average based on 365.
I do.
You understand what I'm
I
saying?
totally
And
understand what you're
that's
saying, and I guess I don't have that. I wouldn't
And
remember
that's
what
okay.
those numbers
It's
were,
okay.
yeah.
It's all right, I just had to.
Yep.
And just so you know, Linda,
Work it
the,
through. yeah.
I was trying to work it through in my head, and I just had to have clarification
Yep.
from you, and I thank you.
Okay.
last year's decision was a little hasty, so I'm letting this go a little longer, so I think this
Well, I think
discussion's
what-
helpful, so
I think
let's
the
vet
way
it
you
out.
set it up this year, I think, this is reality. We're in reality now, and again, I think you're right. It was the way it had always been done. We walked in and go, single rate, and that was the end of the discussion, and I think, I'm not gonna say we blindsided you, because I walked into that meeting not realizing, I was going into that meeting that we were going to single rate too, but I think what you've set up to move forward, I think I speak for the board that this works, and I think it gives a better communication, that you're not getting, you got the letter, the cover letter with your packet, that we were gonna come in with a split rate, didn't say what it was, but you knew that we were coming in with something.
Something, yeah.
So at least you forces you to
Yeah,
really. get
I
into
share
it.
the same sentiment as Linda. I walked out to the car and I said, what the hell did just hit us? But I looked at your board, and you've got a lot of longevity and a lot of years and a lot of business families, so for you guys to say it was a split rate, there was a little comfort in that, because you wouldn't have done it unless it had a lot of merit, and I think that's why I think we voted so fast. This year, I think we absorbed a year of, there were some angry businesses, as you said, Linda. I'm not sure if I haven't heard from any residents to say thank you that they could use the extra $100 that they saved, so I'm not sure if people even realized it. But sitting at this table today, the political, if you want to call it, the ramifications of a business coming in and they're treated different than the residential, even though it's $100, it's a huge ripple effect. Has it stopped businesses? We just had a huge business come in. I don't know if that was a factor. It may or not. And
Right,
a lot of
you
this
don't
stuff,
know.
it's
Right.
just
Well, actually,
speculation.
we're seeing, growth. I mean, growth is coming back again. We're coming
Yeah.
off the lows, and between the chief assessor and the building commissioner and I, our growth, forecast is improving, in the next couple of
Yeah.
years.
And the other towns are doing it, and now the other towns are starting to go back a little bit, so I don't think we're doing anything that was not, if there's such thing as an industry standard, I think you were being proactive.
Jim, I just want to make sure the board has the right number in front of them in terms of what the decision means to the average homeowner, because that sounds like the important discussion. Looking at your exhibit on page 6, if I'm reading this correctly, if the board votes to essentially undo 50% of the shift that occurred last year, the average homeowner savings is $75.32, correct?
Yes.
Versus going back to a single rate.
Yeah.
Right.
But if we go to the split, they're not saving 75 there, it's increasing 75.
So I just want the board to have the flavor. The percentages sound big, but the dollars that we're dealing with for savings one way or the other for the homeowner are not gigantic dollars here.
Okay.
So if the board decides to undo the whole thing, we're not talking a massive shift onto the homeowner. That's not the case. And I just think it's important to understand the dollars here, because I thought I heard it being said that this is a massive shift.
So it's over a 7% increase in residential taxes on average.
Which adds up to how many dollars for an average homeowner?
For the average home, it was $358, I recall.
Yeah.
Yeah, $358, so the average home, average value,
So it's basically
$365,000.
it's $100 per 100, it's a bucket for every 1,000.
Rough and tough.
Which is why they're recommending doing roughly half that, undoing, if you will,
Doing a
half
quarter.
of what was last
Quarter
year.
of it.
With the goal in mind that if the market values continue to go as they're going, next year you'd do the same thing and we would be back to status quo. I mean,
But this is absolutely one of those discussions you need to have, so everybody understands the process, and you're educating both everybody here, the people, because a part of our job is to educate people on what decisions we're making. That way, we don't have to validate it later.
All right, now this is a public hearing. We've kept it open for the discussion. Once we close it, we can't get new information. So I asked once, and there was no speakers. Is there anyone else that wants to speak?
I don't have to. I apologize that my voice was carrying
Okay.
as well as it was. But Kevin, you,
George, if you're going to
George.
speak, you do need to come to a microphone.
I'm not going to speak, I'm going to speak.
don't have anything to say.
George Montreal, Road, sorry that my voice was carrying as it was. We were having a discussion back here, sort of related, but I don't have anything to say, as Kevin brought up the fact that this whole thing is based on market values, and the total market value, which he didn't say of business, this year is here to homeowners here, where last year it was like this. And since everybody paid the same rate, if there was no equalizing of the percentages, the businesses would have paid much more, less than the homeowner would. So the factor of the hit, that's not the subject. It's how is the rate being balanced off on the assessed values.
I think, in summarize, I think we're just trying to equalize the difference, you know, to bring it somewhere in the middle. So, okay, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second?
Motion made and seconded by Lorraine. Any more discussion on closing it? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0 to close it. More discussion?
I'm educated.
So we're going from 2.08 to 1.42.
Yes.
So that's like
that's the
going
recommendation.
down.
I'm sorry, I was saying 2.8, but you're right, it's 2.08 to
So
1.4.
like
About 25% roughly,
about 25%,
roughly.
not half.
30,
Not
yeah.
really going half. So would you guys thinking of like chipping away at this, or do you think maybe
You
next year
just-
we'd get back to the?
We don't know. You
don't
don't.
know.
Yeah, but every
Every
year
year's
is
gonna be
different, yeah. I mean, Meditech is moving in, that's great. That's a
Right.
huge building
Third.
that is, no longer empty. There's some other stuff on the horizon, hopefully, that pan out in town, and I think that'd be great. And the more that you get businesses into town, I guess you can,
We'll start to move it
Yep.
along. And just just for the record, next year, fiscal 14, is a revaluation year. And because of, tightening, ever-tightening Department of Revenue standards, I think, inspections on 50% of all property, 50% have to be visited. So it will have yet another, benchmark year for the town, where.
Like 2010?
Like 2010, so it's going to be a great litmus test, I think, to see, what have we missed, along the way, what's changed that we're not seeing, that people aren't coming forward with, that we're not capturing. So, it'll be very interesting to see, how that shifts things next year.
Would the board consider, and I know we don't have the numbers for these, I thought it was 2.8 down to 1.4. If we go 2.08, so let's call it 2.0, down to 1, with the steps a little faster going back to 0, it gives a little more confidence to the businesses that we're moving them back in the right direction. It's not as much of an increase on the residential. It's a little nicer story to say for business that's coming in that we're, maybe it's a 2-year process. This is the first year, we halved it, and the second year we go back to 0, not knowing what the next board is going to do.
Jim, for clarification, after we close the public hearing, should this discussion only be amongst the board, or should this
Yeah, this is for the board. This is for the
I
board.
mean,
We've already, I think we've already had our meeting.
Yeah,
and
it's
We've
you, you
come up with our
but I'm
recommendation,
saying,
now
should
it's
we-
it's
The
you.
public hearing is closed, should you guys be participating in the board's discussion? I'm asking for clarification, I'm not saying I know the answer.
I'd appreciate it if you stay at the table. If there's a
Yeah.
question, it's a little out, but I'm sure somewhere in some book you need to leave the table, but I'm comfortable with you guys staying. You've been here a lot longer than I have. So my question to the board, would that,
So like going from 2.08 to 1.04, that's more of a 50 instead of a quarter. So,
It's
I mean,
exactly what I
I just feel
am.
like if,
Sorry, Linda.
sorry, Mark. I'm just thinking, you know, it comes down to a quarter instead of a half, and I just think, you know, we kind of said both cut it in half, but not really cutting it in half. Right now, it's down to a quarter, and I just think that was.
you mean cutting it a quarter?
Actually, third.
Right now, we're cutting it a
Third,
quarter.
Third, actually.
Yeah, that's it, but my suggestion would bring it down to a half. I was
Right,
saying
so
that.
like 1.04, I
Yeah.
would, you know, if, I don't know if we want to kind of look at what that would, what numbers that would be, or.
Yeah, it's, actually, it's on page 14. 1.04 conveniently is one of the choices that's spit out of the program. Thank you, Linda.
Convenient, thank you.
So it's, it would be a,
Didn't have a previous discussion, blah, blah, blah.
Honestly, I didn't.
Being that-
I just read my material.
You got it every way, Linda.
I know,
so it's a $52.74% savings compared to a single rate for the residential on average, and then for the business, it's a $285.86 shift to business on average, which is approximately half of, it's actually exactly half of 1.04% shift.
And that gets me to a little more confidence that we'll get to where we need to next year and not
Well, if we
jump
have
back too
another,
quick.
another 2010 coming at us, I don't know.
Which is very possible. I mean, January 1st, things are gonna, unless something happens in the, federal government, you don't know what's gonna happen next year. It could be far worse than what it had, you just don't know.
And that's why I'm,
There's a whole lot bigger things going on with federal tax code than anything we're talking about.
Right,
Yeah.
Light
right.
year,
But I
that's
mean,
for
but
sure.
that affects the, things will affect businesses, small businesses,
Yep.
big businesses,
Yep.
and residential too.
and and residential too.
National healthcare, Medicare load, 3-point-something%. Whole bunch of things going on.
I think it's a good compromise.
I don't know how we all, four of us, 4 out of the 5 were thinking the same thing. And
What?
1.4, I was thinking, Jimmy said it,
One-
you agreed.
1.04.
1.04, I think is
And,
what Jim
no,
is.
just because, I think that's where I was going the whole time.
Well,
So, I'm glad we all kind of concur after that long debate. So, if you guys are all set,
careful when you
Yeah.
vote things like that, Mark. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying, it's like sometimes when you say, I can count votes and things.
I didn't say that, I said,
She's focused
I'm
on
glad
that.
that we
But
all
everybody's-
kind of had the
This
same idea, because it gave it a compromise, is what I was saying, that's what the board's about, compromise.
Oh, but I'm not hearing that from Ginny.
No, I'm
I
not
think,
hearing
and
it
I
from-
respect what she's
said 4 or
saying, yeah.
5. Is
Yeah.
anybody listening tonight? Frank, you listening? Somebody
Okay.
else can make the motion.
Well, you had a motion on the table, Mr.
No, we
Chairman.
didn't.
Yeah, you didn't finish it. It was a partial motion.
So, motion to approve a 1.04.
Actually,
Is there-
if I could interrupt, you vote the residential factor, and
Okay.
it's the column just to the left
Gotcha.
of that, which
Yep.
is .989584. You see
Okay.
that one, the fourth line,
Yep.
fourth line down?
Not,
In
It's
the-
the fifth.
.986.
986.
No, no, no,
Six one.
it's that, when we're talking about shifting the burden, the number's actually on the right-hand side.
Oh, 1.04.
On the left side, that's a Department of Revenue convention, but the
Gotcha.
percentage
sorry.
is shifted
You're
on the
right.
right-hand side.
Yep.
Okay.
So to reduce it by a half, that other line would not reduce it by a half. It would be this 1.04%, and the factor would be .989584. You would vote that factor if that's what the board says.
Thanks, Randy.
It was actually 986,112, the one below it.
It's,
No.
no, it's the one above it.
104.
Don't pay attention to the convention that the
Oh, I
Department of
see.
Revenue
Okay, I'm
uses on
sorry,
the
you're right.
left
Yep,
in
tax
their
burden percent
map.
shift.
But the actual percentage shift is in the far right-hand column.
Yep.
Could you circle that and pass me so I can put it on the record, Randy, for her?
We got it.
Sure.
You got it now?
So,
Okay.
Yeah, we were there, and then we went.
989,584.
Well, if that's what, that's what's voted.
All right.
the motion is to approve, to vote a residential factor of .989584 with a tax burden percent shift at 1.04%.
Okay, motion made, seconded.
Second.
Motion made, seconded by Mark. Any further discussion?
Okay, so this is rather than a single.
Correct.
Rather than a single, it's
50% less.
50% of what it was last year. Okay, any more discussion, questions? All right, all those in favor? All right. All those opposed? All right, motion carries 4-1.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have that scenario for you to sign, but I'll have that by the time your meeting's ended. I'll leave it for Kevin to pass around so I could forward this along to the DOR. So you
Good,
could sign
great.
very
Thank you.
easily.
You guys, thank you. This was
Thank you.
another tough one. Thank you
Good night.
very much. Appreciate it.
See you next year.
I'm gonna be in Bermuda.
Bermuda.
Thanks, Buck. Thanks.
All right, where's the agenda? A little late. We have a 7:40 discussion on National Grid. I put this on the agenda. I sent you all the email. Basically, right in the middle, or right after Hurricane Sandy, I reached out to Marcy Reed, who's the president of National Grid, and basically the email said, look, I know there's a lot of areas and you guys are busy because there's a lot of places that got a worse hit. With respect to Foxborough, we've had a lot of the special meetings, all of the two storms last year and in this year. And I got to say, I'm pretty confident that Foxborough did everything that we could do with respect to the DPW, with respect to our coordination, our emergency preparedness. But at the end of the day, we were standing there with our hands in our pockets waiting for National Grid to fix something. And primarily, some of the stuff was in Foxborough. The majority was not in Foxborough. And it just keeps coming back to the National Loop, the Union Loop, that from the people I'm talking to outside of National Grid, or they used to work for National Grid, it's an issue, and it's not being addressed as quickly as it should be. It's antiquated, it's problematic, and it affects us. So I asked Marcy Reed to come tonight, and I asked Bob Russell, who's a customer manager, and our liaison, Tom Coughlin, and they respectfully said no, and I don't have a problem with them saying no because they were in the middle of the nor'easter that came up. And what Marcy was saying, a lot more can get accomplished in a small group to find out what the issues are and move it along rather than in front of the microphones and cameras, because people can speak freely off the cameras, and that's fine. So I didn't want to turn it into a, well, if you don't come, we're going to beat our chests again and go to the newspaper. But at the same time, I do want those meetings to happen. I don't want to forget about it because it'll come either again in the winter or next year. But is there somebody that wants to sit with Marcy and that group and representatives, probably Kevin, probably less Chief O'Leary and more Chief Hatfield from the fire department, and ask the questions, what is the issue with the Union Loop, and get some answers, and then do a follow-up with the DPU, because I thought it was effective last year. Linda went, I went, and we testified at the DPU. And honestly, I think that was a big factor in the big fines that were levied. Will we get any of that money? Most likely not, because it's going to get someplace else. But I'm prepared to go with a letter from the Selectmen again saying, nice try, it was better service, nice people at National Grid, they sat with us, but it was ineffective in the big picture because you look at Mansfield, you look at Walpole, you look at Rentham, everyone around us had an easier time than Foxborough. So somewhere there's a switch. I don't know if it needs to be a new switch or better wires, but put some pressure on National Grid through the DPU and put it on record that we just weren't happy at this.
Right, and
yeah.
my thought is, you know, fine, if they don't want to come to the table, they don't want to come to the table. You know, that's fine. And I just think that we should put together our thoughts, put it on the agenda, put our thoughts down, and have Sandra type it up, and we go again to the DPU hearings. I don't have anything more to say to them. You know, Tom was here, nice guy, like you said, great guy. But in the morning, he's telling me one thing, I'm going home and I'm telling everybody, don't worry about it, you know, we're all set because he already worked on the Union Loop, and they did all the street funding, and we're gonna be fine. And then 6 hours later, we're here before, you know, and guess what? That was not the case, so.
Okay.
As far as I think sitting with them at the table isn't gonna do anything. I just think we should just put our thoughts together and go have at it.
Okay. Fair enough. Anyone else? Hold on a second. Anyone else from the board? Kevin?
I think the one area you need to explore, whether you do it with them at the table or you do it to the DPU hearing, I think we absolutely have to do it, and that's the Union Loop. Been gathering some evidence, having discussions with a number of experts in the industry, electrical engineers. There's also a group in Massachusetts which is organized to pass legislation to allow cities and towns to form muni corporations. They've put together a huge volume of material. The key problem that we continue to experience is the Union Loop, because it's
That's what we're being told, yep.
it's an antiquated piece of transmission capability.
Right.
We've got it on the governor's radar screen. I don't know if you heard, but the governor mentioned it in a post-storm speech as one of the two most significant power outage issues in the Commonwealth of Mass. So we've got it really out front. My suggestion to the board is you don't lose the momentum that we've gained, and that you have some sort of a discussion about it, whether you do it privately with the National Grid, you do it publicly here with the legislators, most certainly through the DPU process, again, by filing a letter expressing your concerns. Whatever it is you decide to do, I think if we drive that issue, the Union Loop, we're going to be well served in the future. It's the only key weakness left. I'll give National Grid credit. They did a lot of good tree work this summer, and trees wasn't the problem this time. We had a few, but it wasn't, you know, a big problem. It wasn't line crews. They had the line crews here, they responded. There was a little gap at one point. Within an hour or so, they flooded the town with line crews. So I think we've turned the corner in a big way, and they deserve some credit for what they improved on. The key thing is this Union Loop, that big bucks. It's not something they're going to do willingly. It's something we're going to have to press the issue on with our neighboring communities, because we're not the only ones affected. 5 out of 12 sections of that Union Loop went down again. It's because it's antiquated technology. Nobody strings cross-country transmission lines on telephone poles anymore. So, however the board decides to do it, Mr. Chairman, members of the board,
So
up to
Linda's
you.
making a suggestion that, you know, thank you to National Grid. If they want to meet with us, fine, but take the proactive step. Maybe we draft a letter to the Department of Public Utilities and saying we have a formal complaint. This is the third in 2 years, and we need some answers, and how do you want to address it?
Yep. I mean, you brought up the fact that, you know, you've already spoken to people about the antiquated system. You spoke about that, and I think if we put it as an agenda item, we can ask the public if they have things that they want to say. We'll put it into our thing. If they want to come, it's fine. If
You know,
they
at
they
this
don't
point,
wanna,
I
they
think,
don't have to.
I know what the public's thinking. I mean,
Right.
I
They think
heard
of the
it
same
day
thing
and
that
night
we're
for,
thinking. They think of the same thing we are.
yeah.
You know what bothered me about the huge fine that the state put on National Grid? That money went right back into the state coffers. That money was not designated for fixing the Union Loop. So that did absolutely nothing for us.
Yeah.
It just cost National Grid the money that should have been used, forced upon them to fix the Union Loop. So that would be something, you know, when you go to the DPU discussions, I mean, lay that one out.
Yeah. I know part of the process on the fines before was the money, there was no other vehicle for it to come back to the ratepayers, but they did talk about, kind of like when you're on at the tarmac or the airport and you're sitting there for 6 hours, that money comes directly back to you with respect to paying for your ticket or giving you a voucher or a reduction. It doesn't get back to the airlines. So they did talk about that as a next step. So I'm thinking this letter would help push that along. We're not going to get a municipal lighting company. I mean, we're just not going to do it. I know we kicked that around last year. I think we're fooling ourselves. So I think maybe that's the benefit of getting this in front of the DPU. It helps that next step anyways. So Kevin, can you, if it's all right with the board, draft up a letter? And basically, the Foxborough residents have lost out again on monetary, the refrigerators, the daycare, all that stuff. We're not getting any further comfort that this is being addressed outside of Foxborough, and, you know, ask them what they can do for us.
If I can suggest, Mr. Chairman, is that we have council draft a formal complaint letter, as we did the last time, to the DPU to be entered into the record of the proceeding. We can't bring suit ourselves. We can't make a complaint ourselves. We make the complaint to DPU. It really goes to the Attorney General, who's the only party that can actually enter into an action against them. But we'll be on the record, and then the follow-up is if one of you wants to testify to that letter, then you get to do it. Or town council or myself if you're not available. But it's more effective coming from an elected official, frankly. And that's a good way to get our notes on the record.
Okay. So we'll have the attorney do that, and then I'll also reach back out to Marcy saying it was the wish of the board. We're going in that direction, but still offer if she wants to have a meeting.
And Jim, if we just took 2 more minutes on the subject and everybody state, instead of having an email, Kevin, one, you know, what they think the effects were. One was definitely the schools shut down for 2 more days. You know, I mean, that's the big thing that comes to me with 4 children at home. So, you yourself, I understand. So, I mean, and then if your wife works in another town, she's going, it's a very difficult situation, we all know that, but that's a big factor. We're having to shut down the schools. And then, you know, you get the seniors that lose out on electricity in their facilities. But anything you want that on that letter, I suggest you bark it out right now, and those are my 2 biggest things.
Well, I understand that Wayne Drive, they were told, oh, they can't get the electricity back because you need 4 crews to do it.
Right, well, that
And
was,
it wound up one guy did it. When they finally got the truck back, one guy took care of the whole street. Well, that one guy could have taken care of the whole
that
street
was
earlier.
private tree damage. Those are the big difference in that and the Union Loop. But I mean, that I understand. But
Yeah.
I mean, as far as them dispatching equipment to some of the areas, I mean, I know there were more crucial areas, and unfortunately, that's part of it. You know, I mean, some still are very crucial.
But don't tell us that there's 6 crews in Foxborough waiting for the storm to come when there wasn't. You know, and again, Tom's just doing his job, but, you know, I left here with a pretty good feeling about, you know, weathering the storm, and was not the case. So, you know, we definitely, you know, the Union Loop has got to be addressed, and, you know, just don't, you know, if it can't be fixed, then just tell us it can't be fixed. And for the next 20 years, folks in Foxborough, you're gonna lose your power for whatever, so that at least we can prepare for it. Cause
Maybe the DPU can buy everybody a generator with all that money they got sitting fat.
maybe.
All right, so you have the flavor of and maybe reach out to Chief Hatfield, and maybe he's got some added costs and expenses and aggravation he
And
could put in there.
While we're on the storm, I know, you know, I thank everybody, the public officials and everything, but I did get a couple calls from folks that had called the DPW about, you know, getting some trees out of the way because they was, you know, still without power. And then the trees came down because of the snow, and then they were concerned of, like, they haven't been down there plowing. So, you know, if they can just do a little bit better with the roads, some of the side roads, you know, there was one little sweep down this road, and there was senior citizens living there. You know, 2 neighbors had called, left a message with DPW, but nobody ever came back to
Yeah, I
do
think I
that,
might have
so-
gotten the same messages.
Yeah,
The
so-
basic problem was from around here to over to Southborough, you know, what was supposed to be a 1-inch accumulation, maybe at best turned into 6 to 9 inches in the space of just a few hours. And it got ahead of us fast.
Right.
And in fact, we didn't have the plows on. We had the salters on. We had to bring trucks back in, put the plows on, send them back out. And by the time we got one pass of the whole town made, which of course takes hours, then it was already melting. And so making additional passes was really questionable if it was a proper expenditure of the public's money.
But they
So
knew it was
it was
gonna, you know,
unusual.
you knew it was gonna, I mean, I'm no weatherman, but I knew it was gonna freeze overnight and, you know, turns to ice, and then you get a problem with, you know, seniors out there, and, you know, I don't know, Channel 7 and Channel 5, they knew, right, you know, they knew before we knew that, you know, we were gonna get hit, I guess, because they were up at the Common
They were hoping.
interviewing everybody under the sun, like, you know, people are saying to me, what happened in
So-
Foxborough? There's a Channel 5 and Channel 7, I'm like, I don't know what happened, you know, what was the snow? Were we the only ones got hit? No, but, so just, you know,
They left here fairly soon and went to Southborough, by the way, so they got 9 inches out there.
better story, yeah.
Happy to
But I
have
was
them.
Leave us
surprised-
alone.
I was surprised the snowstorm last week. I mean, I was at a meeting, and then by the time I got home, I barely got to my house, and my car's pretty good in the snow. It took me almost an hour to get up my driveway, and not that, you know, my driveway is not the town's problem.
Harry.
However, getting, you know, going home, it was pretty bad.
Yeah, it was bad.
You know,
There was a lot of little incidents, so,
yeah.
I mean, public safety did do their job, but it was, yeah.
It is New England.
And it was,
Oh,
you
no,
know,
and I
it was
know that,
Halloween,
and that's
you know.
why I bought a car that's
Don't
good in the
Halloween.
snow.
All right. Any more discussion on National Grid? The next thing on the agenda was request for the town user fee waiver for the Maya 2012 football Super Bowls at Gillette Stadium. Is there representatives from Maya?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Right, thank you.
May I approach them?
Please do. Yep.
The last time I was in this room, and the last thing that was said was, "See you next year." Hear that again.
And here we are.
You're right. Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman,
Yeah, if you just want to
members of the
introduce
board,
yourself, sure.
My name is Bill Gain, and I serve as Deputy Director Emeritus of the MIAA. The emeritus thing is, I'm old, and this past July, I retired from 33 years of full-time service to the association. But I'm still with them on a part-time basis, and very interested and involved in this particular issue. And the gentleman to my left is Mr. Richard Pearson, who has replaced me full-time. We went to Foxborough to get our expertise, and Richard served as assistant principal at Foxborough High School for a number of years. He's a resident of the town, and most recently as principal of Medway High School. So he's been aboard since July 1st and will be very much involved in tournaments and our MIAA structure.
Great soccer team.
Yes. But I am a 37-year resident of Foxborough. I was assistant principal here for 4 years, back in 2000 to 2004, and then went to Medway. Now I have the fortunate opportunity to work at the state association across the state of Massachusetts.
How do you feel about your taxes?
I was excited about the Union Loop and the tax. You guys did good today.
Okay, so you have a request. Can you explain the request?
Absolutely. And maybe I just should preface it because I'd be happy to take your direction with respect to how comprehensive you'd like this presentation. We did have the benefit of a lengthy debate and presentation last year in preliminary meetings as well as presenting to you materials. That didn't happen this year, not by a negligence, I hope, and I hope that's not the case that you think. It's just that we weren't asked for that, and but we certainly wanted to get back before you because the request is very important to us. This would be the 6th year consecutively that we're asking you to consider waiving this fee on tournament tickets at Gillette Stadium for MIAA Super Bowls. I know that the majority of you know who we are and what we do, and I probably should just give a quick glimpse to new members.
Just so you know, 4 of us are new, and I think we all were
No,
here.
4 of us aren't.
I mean, I'm sorry, 4 of us were here last year, and listen, we have 1 member that is new. And I apologize, I probably should have asked you for a more comprehensive, something in the packet, so in fairness, I don't know if you watched it on cable last year.
Yeah. I
Okay,
will.
so she wasn't on the board last year, but she did see it from home on the cable TV.
Okay, so with that, should I?
As far as history, that's.
History of the MIAA and the, maybe you could talk about the benefits of the MIAA
Perfect.
throughout, and kind of what you do during the day at the stadium, to kind of put it in a home context.
Okay, and I'll also provide the rationale of why we could use this consideration.
Sure.
But the short version of who we are is basically, we are a nonprofit educational association with 375 members throughout the state, from P-Town to the Berkshires. And Foxborough obviously has been a member since the inception of the association. We are regulatory, rules and regulations for student eligibility and a level playing field for students. We sponsor all high school tournaments, boys and girls, in 34 different sports. And we are very active and aggressive in terms of promoting the benefits of participation through an educationally based interscholastic educational curriculum. And that curriculum consists of basically 5 pillars, in which specifically would be wellness, coaching, education, sportsmanship, community service, and student leadership. And those are the values that we try to teach using the vehicle of interscholastic athletics to our student athletes. We have almost 250,000 student athletes, boys and girls, that do participate in our association. Vis-a-vis our tournament structure, which is significant in terms of number of participants. We have probably 250 distinct postseason tournament experiences for boys and girls. That is on a regional basis, north, south, central, and west, and then we go on to state tournament play. We have a significant tournament budget. And that is as high as $3.5 million. And the number of events, as I mentioned, voluminous. Now, in terms of revenue, our biggest assets come in the form of just 3 tournaments: football, ice hockey, and basketball. And there are as many as 23 tournaments beyond that have to be subsidized by those revenues. We happen to have a wonderful opportunity, not only for the experience that our student athletes have at Gillette Stadium, but in terms of, if you would call it a business relationship, it's one in which we are significantly benefiting because of almost no expenses. So that means that the ticket revenue for that particular sport and that particular event does accrue the association significant dollars. But I want to point out that's what it's used for, is the subsidy of all of the other tournaments. We have a lot of challenges that I'll share with you just very briefly. We're in a situation where, yes, we do write anticipated budgets and what we expect annually from revenues, but it's always unpredictable. Now, that might sound a little bit askew in terms of a business plan, but I say that because we're at the mercy of the weather, for example. Sandy has already negatively impacted us, and what I mean by that is tournament events were canceled or postponed. You pay double for rescheduling, for example. If, in fact, on the case in point in this particular tournament, if it snows December 1st, if you were going to put on a tax, you wouldn't get a dime because we wouldn't have the event, and we wouldn't be able to use Gillette Stadium. So those are all potential eventual situations. So weather is a major concern for us always and annually in 3 different seasons. So that anticipated money is true that I say it that way, but you never know. Another major part is what we would say pairings. Now, pairings impact potentially the bottom line because of who may participate against another team. For example, if you have a solid community like Foxborough, and their program gets in a postseason tournament, their community is extremely supportive, but they could be playing against a charter school where there's no community behind them at all. And so you only get the benefit of one community in terms of potential revenue. Another challenge is we have a tremendous thrust in terms of elevating the girls' programs throughout the state. And for example, to be specific, like 2 new programs relatively within the last 10 years would be girls ice hockey, girls lacrosse. Well, for us, we still go out and get the finest venues for them as just the same as the boys. In other words, we put the girls at the Boston Garden for ice hockey. We put the girls at Saugus Arena or Harvard University or Worcester Centrum. It doesn't matter. They're exactly the same. But with the evolution of those programs and doing equity across the board, we are that many more opportunities exist, and consequently, the dollars have to follow. And with respect to girls' sports, they are not generating as much income. Now, that isn't meant to be a negative comment. That just means I'm trying to fill in the picture about why we need these kind of dollars. And yes, we get them from a Super Bowl football or a basketball at the Garden or ice hockey at the Garden. So we're in the business of promoting participation. We want maximum participation for a maximum number of boys and girls, and we're always trying to build new programs for our kids because we believe so strongly in the benefits of participation and the opportunities for them to learn life lessons through participation. So we are out there beating the bushes to find the best venues, clearly to find the best deals, and clearly advocate where we can save a dollar or in these type of forums for what I shared with you, make a dollar to take care of subsidizing all the others. And it's not only tournaments that we're subsidizing all of our student service programs, which have suffered because of state and federal grants that have just totally ceased. So our curriculum, which I shared with you, it has not stopped or diminished in terms of what we roll out to our kids in our schools, but at the same time, it's been really difficult in terms of beating the bushes and trying to come up with those dollars that we can earmark for student programs as well. So I'm sorry I'm talking so fast. I just want to try to get that out, and I'm more than happy to answer your questions.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Charlie.
You're very welcome.
I'm sorry, Bill.
Bill.
Where did you get Charlie from?
Sandy?
Maybe.
Irene.
Irene, I don't know. All right, discussion on the board. I know this is, you heard a presentation, there's also the payment in lieu of taxes and all that stuff that they're not involved, but it all plays into the request, or at least it did last year. So
And
open up for discussion.
This is the last one in Foxborough. Is that true?
Well, for this contract.
Well, we hope there will be a future, but I will tell you that we've never gone this late without having both the overture and something in hand. But we haven't been told that we're walking.
Okay. But right now, on your contract, this is your last one.
Oh, yes, this is the last year of the
Of the
second
third,
three-year
yes.
contract. That's
Yeah.
correct. That's correct.
I just wanted to put that out there for clarification.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, are you planning, if you had your druthers to stay, or I thought Springfield was next on the horizon to get the western part of the state? Is that not correct?
You're part correct, Mr. Chairman. And this may be the reason why we haven't had the opportunity to get into something. The folks at Gillette are well aware that on October 26th, our membership, our assembly voted on on a new football plan, which was markedly different from what we have now. For example, we have 19 Super Bowls now, statewide. They're all over the place. We only play 6 at Gillette. But the vote that actually went in the favor of a change would mean that there are only going to be 6 Super Bowls next year. The goal is that they are at Gillette Stadium. That was part of the framework and anticipation.
Okay. All right, questions from the board, discussion?
I've voted for it every year that they've come in front of us, and it doesn't really cost the town anything. The folks that do come in go to our local businesses as well, so it helps the economy here in Foxborough, and being nonprofit, I think, we should support it. And the crafts give what they give. The stadium has to pay us that minimum anyway, so my choice is that I'll probably support it again this year.
Okay. More discussion?
Well, to tell you the truth, I've never thought that a waiver should be given for the Super Bowl. I mean, I've watched the Selectmen's meetings, and whenever this has come up, I would be sitting there and going, why? Our revenue that we get from events at the stadium, we get $2.47 per ticket. And we get that because they don't pay real estate taxes. So what that is that's revenue to the town. And I've done some calculations and saying 17,000 tickets that you think, and at $12, which is the children's price, you're making $204,000. And if you gave us the $2.47 from the ticket prices, the town would realize $41,990. And my concern is that there is no tailgating. So the craft organization has the concession stands, so they're going to make money on the concession stands. And then also they are donating the stadium to you, so they're going to do that as a charitable write-off. And also, Foxborough pays $3,000 per year a membership. So if we give you this waiver, the only people who are not getting a benefit, actually, are the good people of Foxborough, the taxpayers of Foxborough. And that's why I just don't think a waiver is proper for the town of Foxborough to give you.
May I respond to that?
Sure, please.
I think a thing that is very fair that I offer, hopefully for an understanding, is that the Foxborough school and the students benefit greatly. They participate in almost all of our tournaments at no cost. We eliminated all entry fees for all of our tournaments because of other ways to generate revenue, which I've been, I think, pretty clear about. They come down to 3 big sports and opportunities. But they cover all these eliminations of major dollars. And Foxborough has over 800 students that participate in interscholastic athletics. Besides the tournament experiences, and there are a ton of individual sports that they do participate in annually. The student services they receive are significant in terms of opportunities, extensive workshopping, and leadership programs that we provide them. So they are a credible, viable member of our association that enjoy all the benefits of one another. And if Foxborough goes, see, we're only talking about 6 games. We have literally thousands of tournament games a year. Foxborough will go to another venue, and it belongs to another town or another professional association or another commercial association, and it doesn't cost them anything. Yes, it might cost them, take a bus, but not to participate there. So another town or another venue is assuming the cost of Medicare. I mean, we use all the professional associations, all the state universities throughout the state, and Foxborough benefits from all of those as well.
But the situation we have with Gillette Stadium, it's different from some other venue that you use. The town receives fees. The user fee goes to the town for our revenue. It's part of our revenue that the town should be, that the town gets. And what you're doing, if we eliminate this fee, we're eliminating $41,990. That's a
Yes,
good
and
amount, that's a good amount of
we've
money.
been very grateful for that type of support. But I was just responding to the benefits of the Foxborough does.
And I understand that, and we also, the town of Foxborough pays a membership fee of $3,000. So we pay.
By all means,
but why
you do.
should-
So every town does.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
I know. But what I'm saying is, I think waiving the fee is putting a burden on the I'm talking about the taxpayers of the town of Foxborough. The deal we have with the stadium is we get $2.47 of every ticket price. And I think we should be getting the $2.47 per ticket.
Let's just keep it to the board.
Yeah.
Any more board discussion?
Bill, I'm sure you remember that I have voted against this waiver for the past 2 years. Again, the reasoning being that I think it's approximately $50,000 in real impact to our bottom line, that I think right now, especially given the potential with the move of the soccer out of Gillette to a different venue, that would have a tremendous impact on our revenue stream. So I don't think that, again, this is a year to consider foregoing $50,000 of income. I think we need to be squirreling that money away, quite frankly. I think the other thing is, I agree with Ginny in that this is impacting the taxpayers. Potentially in other venues, I don't know that other stadium situations where these events happen would have that type of agreement that a town where that particular venue is foregoing tax revenue as part of that situation. If an entity donates the use of their stadium or facility, that's it, unless they have a payment in lieu of taxes agreement with their particular city or town. But I think here, again, in the situation, our taxpayers end up subsidizing every other town's participation in addition to what our regular dues are by giving up our revenue. So again, it's just another reason why I would not support this waiver. I think that, the stadium would be paying this fee to us directly. Is that correct, Kevin?
I'm sorry?
Does the stadium pay the town directly for the $2.47? Maya does not pay the town
No,
$2.47.
No, the stadium pays it.
Right. So, I think that that's just how we get our income, and I don't think we should change that, so.
So, excuse me, we're actually giving the waiver to the stadium?
Correct, right. And that's been my objection all along, is that we are waiving a taxpayer's taxes to the town of Foxborough. No one has ever waived mine, or any percentage of mine.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, can you hold off? I'd just
Sure.
rather go to the board and.
Sure.
and, Mark?
Well, this can be a long debate or a short debate. I mean, we all made our stances over many years. I think I'm probably 4-0, 4, because I was 2 years minus. to me, I can go up and down the hill and yap all night, but it's about the kids. I'm gonna stick with my story. I'm prepared to make a motion as soon as you give me a nod.
I do want to hear from Kevin, but my thoughts on it, and I mean, I spent a lot of time on this last year. I went out to Forge Park, looked in your windows of your building to see if there was a big luxurious decadent place, and I actually spoke to a lot of people at Maya last year, and I agree with Lorraine and Ginny that for every person that goes through that gate, there's money that's owed to the town. We call it a pilot program, so you can calculate that. So if you look at it that way, there is money that's left on the table from the town that we're not getting. And granted, you don't get that issue with other towns because they don't have that. But I also look at it that when I looked at this last year, I looked at what our costs would be as a town. So the police service, if they were called, the fire. And I understand that the Patriots, out of their pocket, do pay for the police, they pay for the fire, and they pay for a 10% on top of that. So there's no cost to the town other than the ticket. You can argue that there's a potential benefit to the town because we do have the meals tax, which there is money coming to the town when someone buys something at the stadium or any restaurant in town. When this agreement with the town was put together on the ticket prices and the estimation of events and payment in lieu of taxes, they didn't have the turf field. So at the time, there was, I don't think this was an issue before because I don't think they let anyone play on the grass there because it was only for the stadium. Now we have the football games from the college, we have the additional soccer games, we have the Maya and all that concerts because there is turf. So I think we are taking in more than we anticipated on the payment in lieu of taxes. And hey, it's business. If we can take in more for whatever deal was signed, maybe that comes on, that's a win for us on that side. But nonetheless, there is a benefit to that. The craft, when people say, no one's given me a break on my taxes, and I agree, it would be nice to get that. But over the last year, when we had some massive power outages, and there were lights given to us for the use at the intersections, and there were generators, and there were electricians paid for by the craft organization to hook up the generators. We have the option of saying, no, thank you, that's a tax burden that we have to give to the people, or we say, thank you, that we'll take that charity, or we'll take that donation, and we do. So it is, on one side you can make the legal argument, or you can make the argument that, tickets times $2 is that, and it's owed to us. But at the other time, then you got to say, you can't have it both ways. So I think this is, if the craft organization was making a ton of money off it, but it's something that for 6 years they've asked us on the 6th year to say no, and not recognize the benefits that it has to grow that area, which benefits everybody. I've always supported the waiver, and I think I will this year. So now that was the board. If Kevin, did you have something to add before?
Mr. Chairman, I speak for the Chief Financial Officer, and I'm your Chief Executive Officer. We are, again, opposed to this and would make that recommendation to the board. I won't belabor the complete and complex argument, but I will focus on 2 points. First, Ginny has correctly identified the central issue. If it were the case that the stadium paid taxes, this request could not come before you. It would be unlawful in the state of Massachusetts because of something in the state constitution called the Anti-Aid Amendment, or the AAA. Council has given you an opinion last year that very clearly laid that out. Because of the way the stadium was constructed, they do not pay property tax. They make a payment in lieu of taxes, a pilot. This money is, in essence, tax money. It's simply not called that. This is common with organizations. Towns do it with colleges. They do it with all sorts of organizations. But make no mistake, this is not anything other than the people's money. This is money which is paid instead of taxes. And might I add, the total volume of revenue paid from the stadium is a tiny fraction of what the taxes would be if it were assessed according to our normal methodology. So we're already taking a substantial reduction in what the stadium would pay if it were taxed in a normal manner. Now, my comments have no reflection on MIAA. I know there's been conversations in the past about the beautiful place that they have, and I will say that these two this gentleman has been wonderful and forthcoming. He gave us substantial financial information last year to show exactly where this fits in Maya's funding program and all sorts of information, and I very much appreciated that because it removed any doubt whatsoever in any of our minds, I think, concerning the margins with which MIAA deals in terms of funding its operation. But at the end of the day, it is not any different than any other not-for-profit charity. It is a not-for-profit corporation, which happens to deliver quality services to the youth in Foxborough. But MIAA does not deliver quality service disproportionately to the youth of Foxborough. It doesn't deliver quality services any differently than it does to any other community which is a member of it. As we learned last year, Foxborough alone contributes this $40,000 to $50,000 annually. No other community in the state of Massachusetts makes a similar contribution anywhere near that volume. I would feel a lot better, frankly, if this decision were put in front of the voters at a town meeting, which is what would have to happen if this wasn't pilot money. It would have to go to a town meeting. And the taxpayers would have to decide in the meeting if the value received was worth the dollars being requested, because that is the law in the Commonwealth. That is what the Anti-Aid Amendment requires. And I have been associated with many nonprofit organizations that delivered services to communities and which asked for money and which had to come to a town meeting and justify that money in the form of an appropriation, an authorization by the voters, whether or not they would grant that money. We are completely subverting the legal process in this state only because, and this is my second point, there is a gray area in the nature of the pilot payment. As counsel said to you last year, when the Anti-Aid Amendment to the Constitution was written, it did not presume pilot payments. It presumed the people's money was taxes. And so the AAA does not clearly identify pilot money as being subject to it. So there's no case law on it and no plain language. But counsel closed his letter to you saying the following: we consulted with the Department of Revenue Division of Local Services, which advises municipalities on matters of state finances. I, town council at the time, spoke with Kathleen Caleri, the chief of the Bureau of Municipal Finance Law. As we worked through the issue, she agreed that we identified all the relevant issues and in our analysis, as set forth above, is correct. In short, there is no legal precedent for or against either position, no court cases. The arguments and against the applicability of the AAA as outlined above are reasonable, and she could not predict which way a court would rule if one were to decide the issue. However, because it is not certain, the conservative position to take would be to not grant the waiver. You have granted that waiver for 5 successive years. The taxpayers of Foxborough have now contributed somewhere between $200,000 and $250,000 to the support of this charitable organization. To grant it again means the contribution from the taxpayers of Foxborough will approach the $300,000 mark. I suggest to the board that this is not an appropriate request to make, and it is certainly not an appropriate request to grant, and if this is challenged in a court by a 10-taxpayer suit, I believe MIAA will owe the citizens of Foxborough a great sum of money. And I urge you in the strongest possible terms to please deny this request.
Thank you.
Right. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jen.
No, I just have a question for Mr. Gaines. So this means that no matter whether we grant you the waiver or don't grant you the waiver, with my figure that it came with $204,000, you're going to keep all the revenue from the tickets. You, MIAA. Because we're not giving you, MIAA, the waiver on the fee. We're giving the craft
We
organization.
can't because they're a third party.
Right, so it doesn't make any difference. You're still, for 17,000 tickets times $12, $204,000, you're going to keep $204,000. You get all the money from the ticket revenue, right? So our not granting the waiver is not going to diminish what you make on the tournament. You're still, ticket sales, you're gonna receive all the money from the ticket sales. So if we don't grant you, if the waiver is not granted, it doesn't make a difference. You're not gonna lose any money. But the town of Foxborough is gonna lose money. The
No,
town of
we-
Foxborough is gonna lose revenue, tax
In the
revenue.
practical world, we certainly are gonna lose money. I mean, we have a partnership with the crafts, and the intent, by all means, is that we have, it's necessary because of the relationship that they have with you, that this is an expectation for every ticket, no matter what type of an event. So we certainly have to honor everything, but what's on the table is that our event that they allow us to have can be exempt from that. I mean, it's so disproportionate. I mean, there's not a ticket sold at Gillette Stadium ever for any event that's anywhere near $12,000. So the same 246, that's 25% of is taken from the ticket. You know, some tickets, their tickets go up to $250 for concerts or anything like that. So, but it's the event and it's what they do for us. They would never be sending us all the money. They would be, the way they do their business, I would be assured that they just send a check based upon the taxation, like they do for every ticket, and I think you already mentioned that, Kevin.
All right.
So they would charge you-
Your
Sound
contract,
feel.
excuse me, one more thing. Your contract with Gillette Stadium, it's in the contract that you made with Gillette Stadium that you would apply for this waiver so that the stadium doesn't have to pay the $2.47 per ticket that's being sold.
But I think that's,
But why would a I mean, how
they're
can,
not contract. I can,
well, how can, well, you've had to have, you must have, you said it was a third-year contract. Why is that fair to the town that a contract that you have with Gillette Stadium deprives tax revenue for the town of Foxborough? I mean, I was going in this thinking that we were going to deduct $41,990 from your $204,000, but that's not the case. All that money is going to go for the children. So you're not going to lose any revenue, but the town of Foxborough is going to lose revenue if we grant you this waiver. And that's been going on for 6 years.
well, we don't,
And I don't, you know, I mean,
don't say
this is, I thought the waiver was granted to you. The fact that the waiver is granted to the stadium is even more outrageous.
Well, it has to be granted to the stadium because they're a third party. You can't do it any legal other way.
It doesn't make any
I
difference,
think
Mark.
it's
It
time
doesn't
to
make
move
any
on.
difference. What it means is the town of Foxborough is not receiving the payment in lieu of taxes, which is
And everybody.
what the
Yeah, I think-
deal
I
is.
think we realize that.
Everybody has realized that everybody has an
Yeah.
opinion, and the opinions have all been stated to reinstate them and reinstate them. It's just gonna go on for hours. Everybody's got their opinion.
And as far as, I mean, the legal letters, there's been people that have flip-flop on those, presented both different sides depending on the year. And it is a gray area. If you say, there's no legal precedence and there's no predictability, we've been down that road before.
It's
So-
not a gray area if the $2.47 would be paid directly from the stadium. That's not a gray area. Any event, the ticket price, the town of Foxborough is supposed to get $2.47. That's it.
Understood.
We're not, if we don't grant this waiver, MIAA is not going to be out money. They aren't going to be out money. You are going to receive all the money that you get for ticket sales. Right?
I don't understand that. There's gonna be that much money less.
Why? Not from you.
Oh,
You're not going to give us you're not going to pay the $2.47 per ticket because it comes from the stadium.
I think what would happen was the craft organization is donating the services, donating the stadium, and they would pay that on their behalf. So at the end of the day, you're getting the same amount of revenue. If we don't grant the waiver, you still get the same amount of revenue. The craft organization would pay that 17 times 2.
Right, and then they can also deduct anything they give to charitable
Yep.
organizations,
I
they can
think-
deduct.
I think
So
that
to
we
me,
understand that.
the only ones who's not benefiting, the only people who are losing are the taxpayers of the town of Foxborough.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Just,
Say something? Yeah, keep it going.
No.
All right, go ahead,
go
Linda.
ahead, Randy.
No, go ahead, Linda.
No, go ahead. It doesn't even matter. I just, opinions, that's all.
All right.
Can I just ask a question? I'll go up there. I don't
All right, Randy had his hand first, so let Randy speak, and then you can go. And then
I thought
that,
Kevin spoke for Randy earlier. That's the reason why I'm questioning it. He said he did.
I spoke for our recommendation.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify a couple of points. Just as it relates to the anti-aid amendment, the Board of Directors for Maya, is it comprised of members of public schools and private schools?
Yes.
So if you read the anti-aid amendment, then it is very clear that the operating authority of an entity that is claiming this sort of charity from public dollars, and even though it's not taxation, it is a general fund receipt, if it is not wholly, the language is wholly, publicly controlled, and with private schools having participation on this board, it is not wholly publicly controlled, and therefore, in my opinion, based on former town council's opinion, I believe this is in my opinion, an illegal granting of a waiver. That aside, the second point is just sort of a general or practical point. If I had a son who was playing in a high school Super Bowl at Gillette Stadium, and I was being asked to pay, the number is $2.55 extra on my ticket, I wouldn't hesitate at all. I would pay 100 times that number to see my son play in a high school Super Bowl at Gillette Stadium. So I think we're not talking about what's coming out of anybody's pocket, other than the people, the friends, the parents, and the friends, and the family of these children that are playing in this very important event. And I don't think any of them would think twice about paying an extra $2.55 to see that child play in that game.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Can I go now, or can I go before you, Deb?
My question, I'll pose it to Jimmy privately.
I guess I just.
No, you can pose it to me publicly.
Good, I will.
I just, my only statement is, here we go again, and my problem is that I understand the frustrations with everybody, but I would like to see us move on and possibly mend some fences. It's nothing that we haven't done already for the past 5 years. It's the last year that we're doing it. It does bring, as I mentioned, it does bring things into the town to the other businesses within the town. I'm not taking something out of someone's pocket. Yes, Lorraine, the soccer could go out of town, but they have committed to us that $1.1 million every year regardless. And again, maybe we should start keeping better track of what some of our businesses do for us, not just the craft organization, but some leeway. If we can afford to do that, I think we should. And so that's all. Just, I'm getting very frustrated at this point.
I understand that, but I think, everyone does charitable things, and I don't think that's really the issue. I think the issue is much smaller. It is a tax issue, and that's what I'm focusing on. And, again, if Maya is going to be able to recognize the revenue that they expect from that, you know, that's going to happen. I think we should be looking at keeping our contribution in line with the rest of the state. No one else in the state contributes $50,000 a year to
No
Maya.
one else in the state has a stadium in their town either.
There's only 32 of them in the whole country. We can keep
But-
going with this all night. I mean,
Right.
I'm going to say it, all right? Let's learn to count votes, people. You got 3 stated there for it, you got 2 stated there not, you got some other people in the room that don't have a say at this table, we're all public elected. Okay, so I'm going to make a motion that we waive the 2012 Maya Football Super Bowl at Gillette Stadium fee. Sorry, I'm going to recapture that.
Slow
But they would
down.
grant the request for the town user fee waiver for the 2012 MIAA Football Super Bowl at Gillette Stadium. Motion.
Second.
Motion made, seconded, further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Last.
So,
time.
motion carries 3-0. I'm
I've
sorry,
had
3-2.
enough of this
Thanks,
debate.
guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can we
So
have a 10-minute recess?
good luck at any event.
I know it's running late, but it's been 2.5 hours.
Hey, Frank, can you put a message on there? We'll be back in 10 minutes?
there's 3 Franks.
Hold on, I only signed
You
a
got the
couple of them.
majority.
I only signed a couple of them. Okay, let me know. Okay. Thank you for a short recess after that spirited debate. The couple things left on the agenda. Before we get into the town meeting warrant article, Frank Spillane, do you want to come up and, you've been here the whole night to talk about your action item?
I think the letter says it all, you know, the council isn't here, so.
You can't hear me.
Just look at the letter and.
Okay. All right, if we could.
Questions about which part I can.
Yep, so why don't we do that while you're here, and if that's what you were waiting for. There's an item on the action items. It is the 4th item down. A request to continue the public hearing from November 20th, which is next Tuesday, to a future date regarding the liquor violations at Waxy O'Connor's. Waxy O'Connor's was one of the 3. We had 3 last week. We're going to do 3 on the 20th, plus the one that didn't come with an attorney, so we got 4 scheduled to take this off the agenda to a different date.
To January 8th, it looks like, in the letter.
Yep, we'll find that letter.
Yeah.
So the manager has a conflict, but he's available on January 8th? Okay. All right, in discussion with the board? Make a motion on this action item?
I mean, my only thought was, maybe you should come up, Frank.
Well, just so the public can hear them.
Yeah. We're going pretty far out to January for this hearing. I was just wondering if there's any way you could.
We could do it sooner. I put that in the letter after conferring with Kevin. That was his recommendation. But, you know, any continuance, if you want to do it in December, that's fine.
The reason Frank and I talked about this was the potential on this one, due to the seriousness of prior violations, is for a lengthy hearing. I would say 2, 3, 4 hours, not out of the realm of possibility. Looking at your agendas between now and the special town meeting, you just don't have that block of time. Unless, you know, we're going to have a special meeting on a different night, or endure the possibility of an extremely late meeting, which I think everybody agrees. We don't do good decision-making after 10 o'clock. So in chatting with Frank about it, and then after December 11th, you got one more meeting and then the holidays. So go until after the first of the year seemed eminently logical. I talked to Attorney Cassis, special counsel today. He concurred, made complete sense, so that's why we recommend that.
Okay.
Is there any law that makes us have a hearing in a certain amount of time?
No.
Okay.
And there's nothing in the file that they've requested extended hours for New Year's or
We don't have a
early-
request like that yet, no.
Okay.
And under the circumstances, I doubt that they'll ask.
Okay. And they didn't make one before for early opening for Patriots games? Do you know?
I was going to check that today, and I
I
forgot.
thought
don't
they were in
think
front
so.
of us before.
I don't think so.
I don't think they did. I don't
don't
remember
think
it,
so.
but-
No, coming in. Okay.
Frank, is there a possibility that Waxy's will be sold before January
Not to my knowledge.
8th? Okay.
Okay, so the request to extend the hearing from the 20th to January.
At, do you know what time it was for?
Following week, I believe it's at 7 o'clock. I think it's the first one.
Okay, I would suggest the board, because you have to go to date and time certain, I'd suggest you go to 7:30, because that gives you time to get through other, what may be more urgent matters, and still have time for what could be a lengthy hearing.
Okay.
All right, do you have
So-
entertain a motion?
Motion to continue the hearing from November 20th, 2012 to January 8th at 7:30, 2013 for Waxy's Mass LLC regarding the alleged liquor license violation.
Okay, motion made, seconded?
Second.
Seconded by Mark. Further discussion? Just on a quick discussion, was this already in the paper to be advertised for next week? It was already in the published? For the hearing
20th.
for next
The
week?
hearing.
Yes, that's already been advertised,
So
yep.
we have to have open the hearing and.
Yep, you have to open a hearing.
20th, and then extend it.
And then continue it. What you're doing right now is you're letting us know for scheduling purposes you're okay with that. You're letting Frank know so he can schedule his business, schedule his clients, so we know that's coming.
which is going to make life a lot simpler than if you decided it that night,
time, yeah.
which would,
Okay, motion made, a second.
remember, we've got a fourth hearing that night now, too, so.
Yep.
I just had a question. You said you don't think there's a possibility it could be sold. Say it did, what would happen to, would everything be moot?
If it were to be sold?
Would the violations be moot?
No, because you have to transfer, you have to approve the new owner.
Okay.
So you can hold a hearing before you approve a new owner. However,
Okay.
the board could equally decide, since there's new people involved, that you're not going to have the hearing. It's really up to the licensing authority.
Okay.
I mean,
And it does happen.
right. You still have the requirement to open the hearing on the 8th.
Mhm.
So if you had a request for a new owner, for transfer of ownership, you can't act on that until you act on the hearing, so you'd have to do that. But obviously, if you had that request pending, then you might make a different decision on the hearing. That's
Mhm.
all going to be in front of you. Well, if it sells, it would be in
Right.
front of you.
Okay.
We don't know that.
Okay, any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion? Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Diana? Thank you, Frank. Okay, back on the regular items, special town meeting warrant review. And in your packet is, I think it's the same warrant that we approved to go over to the advisory committee on October 30th.
Yes, that was the final warrant.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, the board doesn't need to take a lot of time tonight. All we want to do tonight is have you take a position on the ones that are sort of obvious, because some of these you actually have the legal obligation on to favor, and others you've already voted on, and so it's sort of go through them quickly, identify those, take motions on the ones that you can, and then identify for me which ones you want people to come in and speak to you on, and have a little more involved discussion, so I can get that all scheduled over the next couple of meetings, because we only have 2 before the town meeting,
Yep.
so kind of
Okay.
critical.
So I'll just touch on the articles quick, and if there's any questions. Article 1 is the fire contract. We have that contract yet?
You have signed it, and so this is the one you've already signed
Okay.
that we're funding. You're required under 150E to take a position of recommendation. So that covers Article 1 and 3. Those are the 2 contracts that have already been signed, but they weren't, those are the 2 that you recall were pending the night of town meeting, and we declined to try to
Back
rush them.
in May.
So
Yep.
they're back on now.
Okay.
2 is not yet done, so there wouldn't be any position appropriate on 2, but 1 and 3, you have to take a position of approval or recommendation.
All right, so let's just circle the ones that we'll go back to them. So 1 and 3 is ready. Article 4 was the unpaid bill. That was the water bill regarding Mansfield.
Yep.
So that has potential. Article 5 was the town hall plans, and I think that we're going to hold off on that one.
We already voted on that.
You already voted that.
You voted 5-0.
You can decide
to
if you
support.
want to discuss it or what, but you already voted to put it
You did?
on and to recommend it.
Okay.
But this is for demolishing this.
No,
This is just for,
plans.
this is
plans.
just for plans. This is the preparation of plans for a new building.
Okay, but is.
The plans to demolish.
The
For the
plans
new building.
for the new building.
Yep.
Assumes demolition of this one, yes.
So I think, we did vote for that, you're right. It's on the agenda for the advisory committee, and some of us have been going to there, so I'm going to go as well. If it gets to the point where the advisory committee says there's big issues, we can always bring it back and revisit it.
Right.
Okay?
And I think, I plan on going tomorrow night too. It just seems like we're all showing up at some of these meetings, and maybe we should post it. I know it's not 48 hours,
You
but,
can't debate with them, that's all.
We don't sit together.
well, I just publicly want to state that,
Yeah.
Okay, I remember, you can appear at a meeting, and you can speak personally, but you can't confer amongst yourselves.
Right.
And
And
I think we've been
pretty
careful
much
about that.
Right.
spread out.
We don't even sit next to each other.
It's just, naturally I've gotten a call because I get
Yeah?
calls a lot, and, open meeting law and everything else, so.
Article 6 is the turf field, if we can hold off on that as well. We haven't voted on that. Article 7, the municipal employee organ donor.
Yeah, that's the law that allows, we actually had a school employee do that this past year, which sort of brought the issue up, and there's a statute that allows the town to give any employee who donates an organ 30 days off without impacting their vacation or sick time or whatever, so that they can recover from the donation. and it was suggested to me, frankly, I don't remember who. I dropped it in a folder for town meeting and just put it on when it came up.
Okay.
So it's up to you. I don't.
Do you guys feel like you have enough information to vote on
Probably
that
see
one
it
tonight?
happen 2 times in our lifetimes, if that, you know?
Article 8 is the water and sewer employees. That's the legislation to, we've already combined the DPW in practice, and now we're codifying it on the paperwork with the Attorney General.
Yep.
You guys feel like you have enough information tonight on that one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Generally. Article 9 is the Disability Commission.
This is striking the ad hoc committee and replacing it with a formal commission. Duties and responsibilities are virtually identical, but this is now a statutory commission, because the other one really had no legal basis to it. It was just an ad hoc committee appointed by, that you were authorized to appoint by town meeting. This gives it formal authority under the law, but it's still just an advisory commission.
Article 10, I'm sorry, you guys comfortable with, you all, everybody comfortable with Article 9? Y'all?
Yeah.
Article 10 is the Tier 1 assessment. That's for the 21 Market Street. That's behind the fire station.
Mhm.
And we talked about that last week. Article 11, it's zoning, and I think this is one of the ones that was taken away from the May meeting, because we ran out of people for the quorum.
Yeah.
This is the one that prohibits use variances.
Mhm. Am I correct on that? That was the planning board.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so that is right. And Article 12 is the floodplain overlay. Again, that was on the May warrant, and we ran out of people. The mass rush. Article 13 is the Municipal Affordable House Trust. And that is regarding 40Bs, and if you
Which
can't
we
build it,
signed,
money comes
yeah.
into it. So I think we did sign that
Yep.
already. But we did not vote on it yet.
Right.
I will make a motion that the board recommend Articles 1, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Oh, whoa, wait a minute. You getting all
It's
this?
basically
Well,
everything.
before we
but-
get down that road, is there any article that anyone wants to pull out that have discussion, so we're not lumping it all together?
We pulled out 2.
No, the ones that we had circled, Article 1 and 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9 through 12, and 13.
I didn't
So,
have any debate on those, that's why I was gonna make the motion, but.
Right, and it's not really a debate, it's just a clarification that if we hear more facts, which we will, when we go to AdCom, could we come back and revisit?
I think I'd encourage
Because this
that.
is what happens a lot is, you know, we get up to the podium and I know I voted for something, but then once they've done their homework and I get more educated on it, I sit there and go, no, I'm not voting for it. And then, one of us might say to me like, hey, you voted for that. I just want to make sure that we can motion to reconsider once
I
we
mean, I'd certainly
Mark does
entertain that. I don't want to,
Okay.
especially if there's new information or information we weren't privy to,
Right.
to be stuck on a vote just because we're stuck on it.
Okay.
So.
Thanks.
All right, go ahead, Mark, I'm sorry.
So the motion is for
Articles 1, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 for the board to support.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Right.
So just to be clear, Article 12, which is the police contract.
2.
I'm sorry, Article 2. Article 6 is the turf field, which I can speak to if anyone wants to hear it. We can kill that one tonight. You're kidding me, those are the only two.
Yeah.
Police contract, a no-brainer, it's not done, but it could be ready, and then we would vote to support, we would, once we signed it, we'd vote to support it, I think. In the turf field, Mr. Chairman, and if I would take over as chairman for 2 seconds, because I know you want to recuse yourself. If the board would like to have a debate on that tonight, we can take a stand on it now, we can do it at another time.
Okay,
Excuse me,
another time.
another time?
Yeah, I'd kind of like to wait. like
So
I said.
we'll discuss Article 6 at the next Board of Selectmen meeting.
You'll have to.
Yes, yes, but it gives us time, because I know AdCom's gonna be talking about that. I think that's the big sticker, is that one and the town hall.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
And I'll ask the school committee to come in and present as well, to their warrant article.
All right.
Very good.
All right, moving along.
That's
Back to you, James.
And we also have an item, actually, before, we have one executive session to negotiation with non-union personnel.
And litigation.
We have action.
We have action
Where's
items.
litigation?
It's not on there. Please add it. I need to give you an update. Remember, once you're in a meeting, you can add
All right, it's okay for the
executive
board to...
session subjects,
just
as
a
long
quick
as
vote?
you've got executive session on the agenda.
Yep.
You guys okay with adding litigation
Yes.
to the agenda?
That's fine.
Action items?
Yes, sir.
Interoffice, we have the October 16th meeting minutes.
I'm looking at you, Lorraine.
All set?
To approve the minutes of October 16th.
Second?
Motion made, seconded, discussion. On page 6, which is the last
Taking my
page
time.
with writing on it, third paragraph down, it says the motion carried 4-1-0. Usually when we have somebody that's by themselves voting either yes, no, or abstaining, you just put the person's name. I just don't remember who the one person was. Anyone remember?
What-
This was the change health insurance benefits under Mass
Me, I
law.
voted against it.
So just,
That's actually a good call. We're required by law to list that. The case where it's unanimous, fine. If it's not, we gotta list it.
So, I know this is probably out of order or whatever, but have you had the meetings with those folks from the
No,
insurance
we're still
advisory?
putting, the information we have to put together is gigantic, so we're wading through trying to put it together. Hoping to meet with them, not gonna be before Thanksgiving at this point, be after Thanksgiving, but it'll be soon.
Well, I'm just, the more information that I was reading about it, I'm just, I'd like to be able to go to that meeting because I'd
Sure.
like to get more educated on it.
They are late afternoons,
And,
because it's employees, and so,
well, if it's late afternoon, yeah, that's better for them, obviously, because they said
It's
the 10
after the-
o'clock they couldn't make it.
it's after the teachers get out, because the teacher rep who's chairing, unless they change it, I don't think get here till 2:30, 3 o'clock, something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's just, I think that there's,
I think you're right.
there's things to be learned and better understood.
Sure.
So, when we made that motion, that approves, I just want to get this straight in my head, because I was rereading it, and that approves what the legislation,
It approves the process to go forward for us to begin having the discussion with the union about what the changes will be and what will be the dispensation of the savings.
okay,
And if they want to make an alternative proposal, they can do that. That comes back to you. Basically gets the process moving.
all right. So the unions could come back. It's almost like a negotiation with the unions, or it isn't.
Well, it's not really negotiation
Because they
because
couldn't-
you have the unilateral authority to impose it. But that doesn't mean that they can't counter-propose something, and we'll be happy to listen to them.
Okay,
Okay, and I need to stop that now because it's
Yeah.
yeah.
not on the agenda.
Talk to me after if you want. Linda?
Just let me know when that meeting's gonna be.
Yeah, sure.
All right, action item 2, Kathy Brady from the J.C. She was actually here early at 7, and she had another meeting, and I don't think it was worth staying around 3 hours, because it's a request to
Very
decorate the
important.
common.
It's very important.
Yep.
I move that we approve the J.C.'s to decorate the common.
On
in
December
honor of the
1st.
On December 1st. In honor of
Second.
the winter holiday season.
Second?
Motion made, seconded, further discussion. Just that we're very grateful for her and the J.C.'s to do that. All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Next item, the new hacky license application for Barry Craigsman and Jason Lees. Both are signed by the police chief.
Both are signed by
Deputy
Deputy
Chief.
Chief
I'm sorry,
On his
Chandler.
behalf.
Yep.
And they were both for, they're both new, so I think we should do it separately. I move
You're right,
the
yeah, I know.
approval of the new hacky license for Barry Kriegsman.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
A motion, can we hear a motion on the second
And
one?
I move to approve the new hacky license for Jason Lees for 2 years.
Second?
Motion made. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Item 4, we did, James Toronto for the Toby Keith's Bar and Grill is request for 11 a.m. opening on Patriots home games for
Isn't-
Sunday, the 11th, 18th, 16th, and 30th.
But isn't the game on the 18th scheduled to 4
Well,
o'clock?
Yeah, the 11th is done, the 18th moved to 4, the 16th is at 8:20 p.m. and not at 1.
Yeah,
So the only really relevant game
is the
is
30th.
December 30th.
Well, we can just clarify as a motion.
I'm
We
just,
always do a 1 o'clock starts, right?
Mhm.
That's how we always do it, so. Motion to grant, opening at 11 a.m. for Toby Keith's Bar and Grill during, Patriots Patriots home games, starting at 1 p.m.
Okay, we'll take that motion. Before you second it, there's a two-part request on this. One is for 11 a.m. openings, and then the second paragraph is also for an extension till 2 a.m.
right.
So if your motion is just for
I-
that.
Just for
we
that,
can-
I would
okay.
just, I would do them separately.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's what I'm reminding you, okay.
Because it's,
So motion is made for just the December 30th, for the 11 a.m. game.
Second?
Motion made and seconded, further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Second part of the same letter says, also, we would like to request an extension to December 31st liquor license. This is not a request to serve alcohol to a later time, but only to remain open until 2 a.m.
so I just wanted to make sure that that means that those drinks will be off the bar at 12:45, correct? Or
12.
12:30?
No.
Okay, so
They just,
explain that
No,
to
under
me
your
then.
current regulation, drinks will be off the bar at 1:55 a.m. Moreover, you have a hearing pending here, as I think you're aware, right?
yeah,
So
so,
I would certainly urge the board to not take action on this request until you have the hearing on the alleged violation next week.
shelf it.
Otherwise, you're potentially acting in an inconsistent manner, given a prior hearing and decision you made last week. And
That just proves you're awake.
Toby Keith's is one of the three?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why I missed that, because I'm
No.
not so sure that I would even give them the 30th. Because
So-
that might have,
Are we, I apologize, but I know there's 3, there's 4 next week. One is the restaurant that didn't
that
come
didn't.
with council.
Right.
What are the other 3 again?
Waxy's,
Waxy's, the Bluefin, I think it's called.
Right.
Bass Pro,
And
yeah.
CBS Scene.
And
CBS.
scene.
Yeah.
So Toby's is not one of them.
Toby's not one.
I'm sorry.
Toby's,
What did I just say?
yeah,
Toby
Yeah, it's
Keith.
CBS scene, because last week it was.
Bluefin.
It was his live showcase live. So it's Bluefin, CBS scene, Waxy's.
Well,
That's it. So this
Wait a
is not
minute,
one
you
of
might
them.
be right. Hold on that. Let me go check, because this isn't something I
well,
want
it's
to
something we
mess
can
up
hold
on.
off on anyways.
Well,
Doesn't
but
have
if
to
there
be
isn't a
signed.
hearing pending, then there wouldn't be any reason to
Well,
hold
it's an
off.
action item, and nothing even,
Yeah,
it's
but
a
they
month
need,
away.
but they need to make their plans. And if
we
I
need to be able to
misspoke,
publicize it.
if I misspoke, I
I'm-
want to correct that immediately.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Could you check on that?
I didn't,
That's just-
Give
I
me 1
didn't
minute,
see
Mr.
that
Chairman.
anywhere.
I'm positive it's not Toby Keith's, but let's go
Go
through
to
it.
Robert.
All right, hold off on that one. The next action item is,
Jeff Packer Charitable Fund.
Yep.
The auctioneer's license.
Mhm.
I move to approve, for the benefit to be held on,
November 16th,
November,
16th.
it's Friday.
Yeah, that's it.
What are you talking about? Item 6?
Yeah, it's a one-day auctioneer's license. That's all they
now,
ask them for.
just for clarity, this application was on October 31st. I guess, well, I'm thinking it's the end of, November, so this is the earliest it can get to us. So it's tight, but
Yeah, I just kind of thought it was kind of,
It's this weekend, so.
Yeah,
it came in on the 31st.
yeah.
You want to continue your motion, Linda, or?
No, that's it.
Yeah.
It's,
All right, motion
it's-
made.
It's for, you know,
Yeah.
it is for that day. It's for the 16th. It's just,
Second.
you know,
Yeah.
it came in on the 31st of October. and
That's-
We've been meeting almost every day. I feel like I've seen you guys almost every day. I don't know, maybe not, but.
All right, motion made, seconded. Further discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
I misspoke, and my apologies to the board and to Toby Keith. There is no hearing pending at that establishment. And in point of fact, during the compliance checks, they did fine. So there is no reason for the board to take any action other than approve this if you wish or not.
So can you explain to me, if they're not going to be serving alcohol,
Last
Drinks will
call
be-
at 1:30, drinks off the table at 1:55. That would be your regulation.
It's extension.
so they are going to be serving alcohol after their allotted time at, because usually they stop serving alcohol at 12:30, correct?
12:35.
They stop serving at 12:30, drinks off the table 5 minutes before closing. That's your regulation.
Right,
So if you let them stay open till 2,
yeah,
where ordinarily drinks would stop being served at 12:30
yeah,
and drinks off the table at 12:55,
yeah.
it would just advance everything by an hour.
But they're saying that they aren't gonna serve alcohol, that they were only going to be open.
This is
So
not a
that's what I was
request to
trying to-
serve alcohol to a later
Right.
time, but only to remain open until 2 a.m.
So that's why I'm saying, so all the drinks basically will still be off of the table at 5 minutes of 1.
No, it'd be,
I think you have to clarify that, because under the statute, if you allow them to open, I think that right comes with it to serve alcohol. Remember, if you're
I
going to
know what
limit
we've
it.
done, yes,
Right, so I
but-
think if your intent is, if their request is to not serve alcohol past 12:55, or actually 12:30,
Right,
with drinks off the table at 12:55, I think that should be in the motion,
Okay.
that they're open till 2, but drink service concludes at 12:30, drinks off the table at 12:55.
That's sort of
That
what
way,
they
there's
said
no
in-
lack of clarity.
that's what
I
they
think
said in
let's-
their letter,
the
right?
motion I would make is to allow Toby Keith's to remain open to 2 a.m. on New Year's Eve,
But
but
not
to-
extend their liquor
but
license
to
by an hour.
keep, not extended liquor license operation hours, so all liquor off the tables at 12:55
AM.
a.m.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Jim Morris, Director.
Wow, and now
Wow,
we
this
now we
is
have
a
this.
blast from the past.
Dude.
Jimmy Morris. Jim Morris, Director of the Wampanoag Roadrunners.
Yes.
This is their annual Riders on the Storm.
They've been doing this right along.
18th anniversary, yeah.
Mr. Thrasher, I'd love to make a motion.
There you go. Go ahead, Mark. It's wide open, I'm not gonna go there.
Good. Grant the request to hold an annual 3.1-mile road race through Foxborough on Sunday, February 17, 2013, by the Wampanoag Roadrunners.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, under discussion. It was signed by Chief O'Leary and Chief Hatfield as well.
I-
It was complete.
My only thing is that, you know, these road races are getting more and more, you know, and it's great because we have great roads for them. But when we're gonna close down a road for an extended period of time, we need to make sure that
The
it's
residents.
published and the residents are very clear on that, because there comes a time when you know, you can't get there from here, if you know what I mean, and it doesn't matter how you try to come at it, you can't get to your home.
Yeah.
Not
And-
you, Maki, but some of us folks that
Oh, you
live,
should see the bicyclists that go by my house. I can't get out of my driveway.
yeah, so,
Well, this
My
goes right by
suggestion-
Linda's house, that's
My
why she said that.
suggestion
Well,
to
most
the
of them
board is
do.
to include in your motion, no road closings. That
I
makes
said
it
that,
nice and
and no
simple.
road closings.
thought I heard you say that.
Yeah, and that was discussed, but if the
By the way,
police,
about 3 months ago, you publicly promised that on all future road races, so just a reminder to the board, because it was a very emotional issue. You know, we worked hard on it, and we
Yep, understood.
determined that we could do that. It takes a little more work and a few more details to do it because of crossings, but that's up to the race organizers to figure that out. And having it where people can't get out of their driveways for 2 or 3 hours at a time, that's just, I do a lot of road races, and I don't never seen that happen anywhere, ever.
and I understand that, and I agree, but playing devil's advocate, there's an injury, and the police say, well, we wanted to close it, but we couldn't
So
close
they have the
it. So they have
authority
the,
to do that.
yeah,
They
okay.
have the absolute authority, public safety authority.
So,
They didn't mention another date in case they're snowed out. So that means that they won't have the race?
You can approve both dates.
No,
you
there
know.
is
They
no
don't
other
have.
date.
Oh, there
they
isn't?
don't- No, they don't have a rain date.
Then they're not planning a snow date,
Oh,
apparently.
okay.
okay, motion made and seconded, further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
By
Motion
the way,
carries 5-0.
we runners, the weather doesn't bother us. You know, they say it's only football players. Us and bike riders, I had to throw that in.
Okay, and Monica is back from the Foxborough J.C.'s asking for permission to hang holiday banners around the common.
So moved.
And
Second?
motion made, seconded, further discussion? Other than thank you, and it looks like the same banners as last year, and they want to do a few more, actually. if budget permits, so, thank you very much. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 5-0. And at that point, do we have a motion
Motion
to
to
go into executive
executive
session?
session solely to talk about non-union contracts and legal
Negotiations with
Litigation.
non-union personnel,
negotiation,
And-
non-union personnel,
strategy with respect to litigation.
and strategy with respect to litigation to come to the regular session solely to adjourn.
Motion made, seconded, all those in seconded?
Second,
Second by Linda. All those in favor, Linda?
yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Rain?
Yes.
And Mark?
Yes.
And I say yes, so, thank you and all, and good evening. Thanks, Frank.